Good morning, it's 7 o'clock on today's show. We meet the American community that says it doesn't want blacks, Jews or gays.
Plus, the Foreign Secretary David Lammy condemns a litany of horrors taking place in Gaza. We'll speak to him in just a few minutes.
And it's a huge day for England at the Euros. We'll be live in Switzerland as we look forward to this evening's semi-final.
It's Tuesday, the 22nd of July. Your headlines. Sky News reports from the American community open to white people only.
What this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I mean, it's free association.
The Foreign Secretary says Israel must answer for killing desperate, starving children in Gaza. Campaigners call on the UK to ban arms sales.
England's Lionesses are just one win away from the final of the Euros again. They take on Italy tonight here in Geneva.
There are going to be all kinds of people.
And we talked to Christina Aguilera about taking burlesque from the big screen to the West End.
Have you spoken to Cher? Is she coming to London? We're hoping.
I mean, yeah, she's always welcome.
Very good morning to you. We're leading this morning with a report from a community in Arkansas that say only white straight people are welcome. Sky's Tom Cheshire has visited the group, which is part of a wider online movement with supporters around the world. When he challenged them over trying to bring back segregation, they said they wanted a place where they could control who their neighbours were. Here's Tom's report.
High up in the Ozark Hills in the state of Arkansas, dozens of people have been working hard, building houses and a new type of community. It's called Return to the Land, and it is a town open to white people only. They are millennials and Gen Z, and this is a new update of age-old prejudice. No blacks, no Jews, no gays. Its founder, Eric Orwell, invited me in because they believe what they are doing is completely legal.
Welcome to the Ozarks.
Thank you very much.
What we've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites-only place.
White American culture. Yeah, not just white, but white American.
But what this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I mean, it's free association. So we're not trying to keep other people down. This is a small settlement in the middle of the Ozarks.
But they are being kept out, even if...
Well, I mean, you don't let everyone into your home.
Around 40 people live here. Hundreds more from across the world have paid to be members. And while the men do the physical labor, the women take care of the children who live here full-time.
It's a loving movement.
I mean, on that aspect of it being loving, I suppose the counter-argument would be it could be a very loving community if you're part of the community, but if you're black, or if you're Jewish, or if you're gay, you can't be part of that community.
They can have their own communities, and they already do, and I think that's great for them. If other people are allowed to do it, I don't really see why whites aren't allowed to do it. It doesn't make any sense.
But the goal is to have lots of these communities, and for it maybe not to be rural, for there to be cities on the same basis, right?
Yeah, that would be neat. I look forward to seeing how this movement grows over time.
Return to the Land is only the most radical example of a growing trend. These are all the white supremacist incidents, demonstrations, leafleting, recruitment drives, meetups over the last 4 years in the US, tracked by ACLED, an organisation that monitors violent conflict and protest. There's been a dramatic increase over that period. It has become a background thrum of nationalist activity. You might be wondering how any of this can be legal. Return to the Land is structured as a private members' association, which they believe allows them to discriminate on the basis of ethnicity, along with other factors. That has yet to be tested in the courts and may well fail, according to civil rights experts.
If you really look deep into civil rights, Act that would state that. No, it doesn't state that. And I think they misunderstand what it states. Because there have been many organizations that tried to carve that out and say, hey, there are certain people I want in here and certain people I don't. And there was a lawsuit. And the person who filed the lawsuit won, because you cannot carve out and say, I want this group of people in and this group of people out. That's not right.
Right or not, they are doing it and they are growing it. The Arkansas Attorney General has said his office is now reviewing the matter as a result of our reporting, and that there is no room for racial discrimination in Arkansas or anywhere in a free society. We contacted the governor of Arkansas, but did not receive any response. Return to the Land, though, hopes to be a beacon for its political ideals. Others will look at the same flames and see something very dangerous. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Arkansas.
Well, you can watch Tom Cheshire's full report tonight on The World at 9 p.m. Extraordinary report from Tom Cheshire there. Now, the UK has joined 24 other nations to call for an immediate end to the war in Gaza. The joint statement says the killing of Palestinians while accessing aid is horrifying. Here's what the Foreign Secretary had to say yesterday.
I utterly condemn the killing of civilians seeking to meet their basic needs. The Israeli government must answer what possible military justification can there be for strikes that have killed desperate, starving children? What immediate actions are they taking to stop this litany of horrors? And what will they do to hold those responsible to account?
We'll be speaking to David Lammy in just a few moments. Mari, this is a headline-grabbing letter. The question I guess he's getting so far today is what tangible action is he following it up with?
Yeah, exactly. So David Lammy, in terms of the rhetoric around Gaza and Israel, it is hardening. But as you say, what does that mean in terms of action, substance? For instance, Amnesty International has criticised it as being, empty words, no resolve, lacking backbone. And so really the question is, what is then following up from this? As you were saying, in that clip there, they talk about the drip feeding of aid to Gaza and how they find it horrifying that people are potentially starving in the region. Israel completely rejecting the statement, saying that it sends the wrong message to Hamas. It's completely, disconnected from reality. The difficulty is, how does David Lammy find a way to still reconcile that relationship between the UK and Israel so that we still actually have some level of influence over Benjamin Netanyahu, for instance, if we have any already, but simultaneously making sure that we do not condone anything that might be breaking international law, and that we implore them to remain their steadfast commitment to not breaking international law. And therefore, they're in a situation now where the question is, what action are they going to take? Is it going to be more restrictions on export licences of arms to Israel, for instance? Will they recognise the state of Palestine, for instance? Will they start using certain rhetoric that perhaps they've been uncomfortable with before?
Mark, great stuff on that. And David Lammy will be joining us at 7:15. He's in the building. I've seen him just moments ago, and he'll be taking Mari's seat there at about 7:15, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Switching focus to the Tories, we've been wondering if they can do a reshuffle at times this week, and you're able to report that that's actually happening now.
Yes, it is underway. Today is the day for the shadow reshuffle. What we know so far is that James Cleverly, former Foreign Secretary, former Home Secretary, is making a comeback to the front bench. We don't know what role that's going to be as
It's got to be a top three, surely, for him
you'd
to want to
expect
come
it to
back.
be something relatively senior, considering what he's already done, leadership challenges in the past. But, let's see. Never say never, I suppose. We understand it's not going to be the shadow chancellor, but we're still trying to decipher what role he's going to be taking in Kemi Badenoch's new team.
So we were just chatting about this off air, but presumably if it's not shadow chancellor, it would be shadow home, a role he's had. The Tories had a bad record overall on a lot of that, but he came in quite late and made a few changes. It's almost like there'd be enough he could point to.
There are two ways of looking at this. One way is that, and that essentially you could get Cleverly in and say, let me finish the job. I started, and I made a good start, but I didn't get to finish, so let me crack on and kind of continue from that. The other side of the argument is Cleverly in the Home Department associated with failure? Is it a reminder of what he didn't manage to do, and therefore is that helpful politically? So it depends on which way you want to look at it.
We shall keep an eye on everything happening there at Tory HQ throughout the morning. For now, Mari, great stuff. Reminder, David Lammy here in about 5 minutes. Stay tuned for that. But let's get you up to speed on all the day's other top stories. Liz, got that for us?
Thanks, Wilfred. England's Lionesses take on Italy tonight in the semi-finals of the Euros. It's going to be a good game. Jackie Baltrout is in Geneva for us. Jackie, great to see you as always. Give us a sense of the vibe where you are and your take on England's performance so far in the tournament.
Well, the vibe where I am is quite quiet and quite full of joggers and people doing exercise this morning down by Lake Geneva. I haven't seen that many fans. A couple arrived at our hotel last night, but so far it's quite quiet. It's quite early here, obviously. But so far, England have had a real up and down tournament, haven't they? It's been a bit of a roller coaster. And in the press conference last night, Georgia Stanway, who does like a tattoo, was asked if she had a tattoo right now to sum up their tournament. She said it would be a tattoo of a roller coaster. You know, they were fantastic against the Netherlands. They weren't good against France in the group match, which they lost. And they were very lucky to be here coming through that quarter-final against Sweden because, you know, they were literally one kick away from it all being so different. Yeah, very lucky. Lucky because they're very good. But here we are against Italy tonight.
And Jackie, talk us through Italy. I mean, what kind of team are they? And will there be many changes, do you think, to the England team defensively, I suppose?
Nothing was given away in the press conference by Serena Wiegmann yesterday, and she really isn't one to change things around, and she does like her impact subs like Chloe Kelly and Michelle Agerman, who scored that great goal that got them back into that match against Sweden. I think Italy will be a handful. They're in the semi-finals for a reason, but they are the surprise semi-finalists. All the other teams, you could say, yes, they're going to get to the semis at least. Italy, perhaps you might not have picked at the start, but they've got better and better as the tournament's gone on. Christina Aguilera, who is their captain, she's 35 and she has scored 3 goals, second joint top scorer of this tournament. She could be a handful for England, and they're also playing for a bit of history as well. They've only been professional in Italy and really funded women's football for 3 years, and this team are a result of that funding by the big clubs like Juventus and AC Milan and so on. And she really got quite emotional in her press conference, talking about the fact that they have got to the semi-finals to face England. So they're playing for something really a lot more, I would say, and they've been tricksy so far. But I think England will have too much. And if you listen to the pundits and the ex-Lionesses, they all think that England will have too much for Italy tonight. But let's see, it has not been straightforward for the Lionesses so far at all.
All right, Jackie, thank you. Kick-off is tonight, 8 o'clock. We'll all be glued to that one, definitely. Let's take a look at some of the day's other stories for you. And there's a bit of a row between NHS England and the British Medical Association. It's all over staffing levels during a 5-day strike by resident doctors, formerly known as junior doctors. NHS England has told hospitals to only cancel non-urgent care in exceptional cases, but the BMA says this risks patient safety, warning the emergency services could be left understaffed. The walkout is set to begin at 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday. Now, a police officer who shot Breonna Taylor at her home in Kentucky, this was during a botched raid in 2020, has been sentenced to nearly 3 years in jail. Brett Hankinson was one of 3 officers who blindly fired into the house, but only one was charged. The 26-year-old's death, as well as George Floyd's shortly after, if you'll remember, sparked racial injustice protests. The judge disagreed with the Justice Department, which had argued no prison sentence was necessary. And the actor Malcolm Jamal Warner, who played the Crosby Show character Theo, has died in Costa Rica. Authorities say the 54-year-old drowned off the Caribbean coast while on holiday with his family.
And next up, Leah, we have A very special interview.
Yeah,
Who have you been speaking to?
Lucky enough to sit down on stage at the Savoy Theatre with Christina Aguilera, a childhood star, broke out, you know, in the early 90s, and she's kind of come full circle. She's pushing the boundaries once again.
Was it the early 90s?
Yeah, it was a Mickey Mouse Club along with Britney, Justin, and, you know, huge pop stars at the time. And then she kind of reinvented herself with Strip, the album, with, you know, Fighty, Can't Hold Us Down. And she's back in London, and this time she's bringing her iconic film, Burlesque, that was released 15 years ago now, to the West End stage. Take a look at my conversation with Christina Aguilera. From cult film to centre stage, Burlesque, the musical, has landed in London. It must be quite surreal, Christina.
It's beautiful to see, you know, the reinvention of something that was so special to us when we created it originally.
It's a story of ambition, identity and sequence. But why bring it back, and why now?
It's always been something that we have wanted to do. We talked about it when we were making the movie, and it was so obvious, I think, to all of us that this would play on stage and be, you know, something that people would embrace on the stage. With original songs by Aguilera and Sia, plus fresh tracks from Todrick Hall and Jess Foley, the music pushes things a bit darker, bolder, louder.
You kind of have to have the balance of the best of both worlds. And I really loved the way Jess sort of embodied that, and bringing new interpretation and new vocals to the table that, I mean, just blow the audience away. I was blown away. I loved just listening.
After sold-out shows in Manchester and Glasgow, Burlesque now runs at the Savoy Theatre until September 6th. And fans are wondering, will Cher show up?
We're hoping.
I mean, yeah, she's always welcome to grace us
welcome.
with her incredible, iconic presence. And I'm just so grateful that I had the time in the movie with her. I mean, looking back, it's just like, did that even happen?
Back in the 90s, pop stars like Christina and Britney were celebrated, sexualised and scrutinised, often all at once. The media wasn't kind, and the industry rarely protective. So would she do it all again in today's world, or is 90s nostalgia safer than a second round? If you could do your career over again, would you do it in the 90s? Or would you do it now?
It has to stay where it was. You know, I think everything has its own time and place, and, you know, it wouldn't be the same if I was in this format, and, you know, social media wasn't even a thing back then. There's a give and take in both, but it's got to live in the 90s. As it was.
All about the 90s. I'm with you, girl. This, a story of reinvention on stage and off. A lot of merch on offer there at Savoy. There is an extended version of our conversation, just if you were worrying, at 8:45.
Seriously was. I'm looking forward to that. That was fantastic stuff, and real throwback as well.
Yeah,
with a lot of those music clips. It was good DJ selection in the middle of that too.
Very good.
Great stuff. And as Leah said, the extended version coming up next hour. Now, the National Archives have released a number of files relating to both the royal family and the Blair administrations, offering a glimpse into the past. Let's talk about the former Labour Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Ashton has been diving into some of these headlines. They've been sort of grabbing the various newspaper front pages. So why is this being released, and what are we learning?
We often get a release of files from the National Archives, and to be honest, it feels like gossip, but it's real life. It actually happened. But this stuff that I want to talk about today, particularly around former Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair, is about his ministerial gifts and perks. And the first thing I want to dive into is the amount of designer clothes that he had that were hugely discounted. Now, it's a thing for a lot of people, but when it came to the amount of discounts that he was getting, it was particularly interesting. So a stylist told officials that the discounts she was getting off the clothes from wholesale prices amounted to some 60%. So in a year and a half, this is both Tony Blair and his wife Cherie, they spent $8,000 on one designer alone, Nicole Fahy, for those watching at home. But the retail price was almost £21,000. That means they received a discount of something like £13,000. Now, official at the time said, look, nothing's been done wrong, but the issue is one of public perception, because there is a concern that members of the public wouldn't get such large discounts. Now, Mr Blair did repay the amount when it came to his clothes in full. Cherie didn't have to do that. But he also bought a guitar that was presented to him by the U2 star Bono. This is allowed because under the rules at the time, the Prime Minister Blair could accept gifts worth over £140, but he had to pay for them himself. So when he was given this guitar, he thought, hey, I fancy a bit of this. But he did question whether he'd need to pay the full purchase price, but he did decide to turn down one that was given to him by the Mexican president in 2001, but he did decide to keep that one from Bono.
I love all of this detail. It's sort of some things change, some things never do type vibes. He's a big football fan as well. I think he's a Newcastle fan. I don't know if he took football tickets as well, but...
I'll work that out, but he did take a tennis racket.
He did take a tennis racket. There we go. Ashna, great stuff. Thanks very much for that. We're going to take a quick break coming up shortly before the David Lammy interview. Before we do that, let's have a look at the weather. The next few days will stay unsettled with further thundery downpours, but it's looking drier from Thursday. Northern Ireland and eastern parts of Britain and Ireland are generally fine now, but western Britain is mostly cloudy with showery outbreaks. The west of Ireland has some more scattered showers. The morning looks like turning quite cloudy generally, with showers developing widely, concentrated in the east. Thundery downpours are possible, but the showers will be mostly lighter than recently. Well, still to come on The Breakfast Show, we will be speaking to David Lammy. It's coming up next few minutes, a little bit delayed, but we'll have him in about 5 minutes' time. We'll also continue the build-up to the Lionesses semi-final.
I'm Stephen Murphy and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach.
This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
1, 2, 3, say
These southern boys are fixing critters.
This is the first peacock microchip.
You don't see many axolotls
from everywhere. And there's no place they'd rather be.
Hey, what's been going on?
Pretty big boys there.
Hakuna Matata. Animals will find a way to get injured. How do you eat a whole sock?
The craziest ones find their way to critter fix. Hey, let the journey continue. Appreciate you.
Brand new Critter Fixers start Sunday the 10th of August on Wild.
Welcome back. Mari's here on set. We're waiting for the Foreign Secretary David Lammy. We'll be talking to him in just a moment. And Mari, we talked a little bit earlier about the sort of headline point, which is this letter that he's a signatory on, an author of, on Gaza. Also some news coming out about small boats, which typically comes from the Home Office, but coming joint from the Home and Foreign Office today. Yeah, it's an interesting announcement in terms of the fact that it's David Lammy bringing it. But essentially what the government is doing is it's trying to crack down on people smuggling gangs. So they say that they are going to have new powers under the Sanctions Act as of tomorrow. And this will mean that they can freeze assets and they can also issue travel bans. So people are banned from travelling to the UK. Well, who does this apply to? Gang leaders, of course, but also things like small boat suppliers, people who are making and selling fake passports, for instance, and also the middlemen. So potentially those who are facilitating payments from migrants to the people smuggling gangs via these hawala networks, which are essentially kind of unofficial systems for transferring money. Now, there's going to be this kind of publicly named list of people. Essentially, they'll be named and shamed on this list, and that will also mean that the UK financial system will be forbidden from engaging with them at all. However, I think the question, first of all, that is being asked is why would a people smuggling gang care about a travel ban when they clearly are in the business of travel through alternative routes? But also, if you look at the numbers in terms of smashing the gangs, we have had a 48% increase in small boats crossings in the first 6 months of 2025 in comparison to the first 6 months of 2024. So 20,000 people crossing the channel. We've had this one-in, one-out policy announced with Macron for the French, but that's not actually happening yet. It's not 100% confirmed. The details still need to be hashed out. Things still need to get approved. And so the difficulty is the government look and are trying to look like they are making an effort when it comes to small boats crossings, but so far the figures aren't changing. And so how long is this going to take before it starts to really have an impact? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, as you said, travel bans on people smugglers or sanctions on these individuals who I doubt bank at Barclays as it stands. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't sound like it's going to be a game changer, but it's something we'll talk to the Foreign Secretary David Lammy about shortly. He's due, has been a bit delayed to join us in the next 5 minutes or so. Meanwhile, we just had some data out, the public sector net borrowing figures, and it's come in for June at the second highest level since records began. It's beaten only by June 2020 at the height of the pandemic. The figures came a few minutes ago. It's, of course, the difference between spending and income, and it was $6 billion higher than compared to the same time last year. The number coming in was $20.7 billion for the overall number. As I said, a significant number there, the second highest on record. We did get a tweet from Mel Stride about it, saying, worrying data on the economy, we can't afford labour. Similar message he's used before. The reason I mention that specifically is, of course, a Tory reshuffle is going on as we speak. The fact he's tweeted on that on his current brief might suggest he keeps the Shadow Chancellor brief. We don't know. We'll have more on that throughout the morning. Now, support for a wealth tax is growing among Labour MPs as a way to try and balance the books. Our business and economics correspondent, Gurpreet Narwan, has been looking at the data.
So it's looking like the government needs to find tens of billions of pounds to meet its fiscal rules. The tax burden is at a generational high, and the government has promised it won't raid workers or businesses. So now, some Labour MPs have their eyes set on something else, a wealth tax. And the Prime Minister has refused to rule it out. And this is why. So as a country, our stock of wealth, and this is the total value of everything owned, is much larger than our income, the total amount of money earned in a year. This is the ratio between the two. And you can see that that disparity has been growing, especially during that era of cheap money we saw after 2008 that fueled asset prices while wages stagnated. Basically, it means that the average worker will have to work for more years to buy assets, say a house, for example. And now MPs are trying to better capture some of this growth in wealth. So what options do they have? Well, firstly, there's capital gains tax, which people pay when they sell a second property or shares, for example. Now, we could reform that so the tax rate is the same as it is for income tax. Economists believe that that could raise about £12 billion. We could also levy national insurance contributions on investment income, so that's rent from property or dividends, for example. That could bring in an additional £11 billion. And then, now you may have heard a lot of chatter about this recently, a new tax on the stock of wealth, so 1 or 2% on assets over £10 million. That could bring in between £12 billion and £24 billion, depending on the rate. So, is this problem solved? Not quite, because there's a lot of uncertainty around these numbers, especially around these new taxes that target the very rich. Wealthier people tend to be good at arranging their tax affairs. They are also more mobile, so these figures aren't assured. And valuing assets, well, that's a whole new headache for HMRC. None of this is as easy as it sounds. That being said, the idea of a new wealth tax is popular with the public, perhaps unsurprisingly, when you consider most people won't have to pay it. But even increases in things like capital gains tax, well, that's far more popular than income tax or increases in VAT, the so-called taxes on working people that the Chancellor has promised to freeze. So you can see the political temptation to go after the very wealthy. But there are no easy wins here. The returns are unpredictable, and that's little comfort to a Chancellor whose budget is operating on such small margins.
Gurpreet Narwan there for us. As you can see, the Foreign Secretary has joined me. Lots to discuss with him. Good morning, Foreign Secretary.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Wanted to start on a story that a transport plane from the US landed overnight at RAF Lakenheath, reportedly meaning that US nukes are stationed on British soil now for the first time in 20 years. Can you confirm that?
It would be wholly inappropriate for any Foreign Secretary to comment on our nuclear capability and how we work with partners to keep our people safe and Europe safe. And so I'm afraid I can't go into operational details on that issue, but I would want the public to recognise that we have had a nuclear deterrent for generations. We take that seriously, the upgrading of that nuclear deterrent, and we work with partners to ensure that we can keep our people and Europe safe.
Very, very interesting, and understand the reticence to give us more on that. Let's talk about the situation in Gaza. You're a signatory and author of a letter that you talked about at length in Parliament yesterday. Just to get to the crux of it, do you think genocide might have been committed?
Well, I made the assessment way back in September that I believe that there was a clear risk of a breach of international humanitarian law. I have the practitioner's book in my office of all the laws that could be breached. There are things like proportionality, there are things like deconfliction, so that aid workers and journalists are not killed despite conflict going on. And of course, it is important not to use food as a weapon of war. I made the assessment that there was a clear risk of a breach of international humanitarian law, and for that reason we suspended arms sales that could be used in Gaza. I recognise the debates that are going on. In the end, it will be for the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice to make a determination on the substance of what is being said. But my responsibility is to ensure that the British government, and as a consequence our public, are not complicit in anything that could be a breach of international humanitarian law, and that's for that reason we're not sending arms to Israel that could be used in Gaza.
I'm interested that you make such an explicit conclusion and refer to September, because as I understood in September, you suspended 30 out of around 350 arms exports licensed that Israel has. Are you saying you're suspending all of them now?
We have a very robust exports licensing regime. I am satisfied that we are not sending arms that could be used in Gaza, but we do send other things. For example, kit and equipment that is used by NGOs or journalists. We've not suspended that. I don't think anyone expects us to. We might send, or there might be a request to buy certain chemicals or medicines that are used.
But those don't require
arms. Those are not arms. But they are export licenses, And that might be the number that you're referring to.
So my numbers essentially are irrelevant, which I'm sure you're right on. Any possible export licence that relates to a weapon has been suspended.
Has been suspended.
And that took place back in September?
That took place back in September.
So it's almost like we sort of underreported that back at the time. Just to come back to however you'd frame the scale of what's going on, and I know you don't want to prejudge something that might be one day a legal proceeding. We played this clip earlier. You said it was such great passion in Parliament. The Israeli government must answer what possible military justification can there be for strikes that have killed desperate, starving children. You went on to use the phrase, there's been a litany of horrors. What will they do to hold those responsible to account? If you don't get answers from the Israelis to those questions in the next week or so, will it change where you are on the spectrum of wondering if war crimes have been committed?
Let's be clear. I have already made a determination that there is a clear risk. It will be for courts to make a determination. For that reason, I have sanctioned Israeli ministers. I have broken off any discussion of a further free trade agreement with Israel. I sanctioned some of those egregious and settler violence a few months back as well. We restored funding to UNRWA when we came in and we talked about arms sales. We will consider other acts with partners in the coming weeks if we do not see the ceasefire that we want to see. But it is my judgment that after the Knesset rises on the 28th of July, we are likely to see an acceleration to that ceasefire. And so I hope and pray that there will be a ceasefire in August. And in the end, it's that ceasefire that will allow for the aid to flood back in, as we saw last time, and importantly, for the hostages that are still being kept to be released. Let us remember 83% of the Israeli public want a ceasefire because they want to see the hostages released as well.
In terms of your considering further steps, is one of them recognising Palestine as a state, something you called for when you were in opposition, hasn't happened yet? It's almost as if that shouldn't necessarily be linked to this issue, but is it something you're close to doing?
Well, we said that we want to recognise at the appropriate time, and that is largely linked to a process, a tangible process that leads to the two states that we believe. Your viewers will have heard about a conference that the French and the Saudi Arabians have called, and we are participating in. That is principally to look at two states. It's principally to look at the governance and how we can get to a better day after and sustain that ceasefire and keep that two states alive. But yes, there's a live debate about recognition, when we should recognise, how we should recognise. Our position has always been that we want that to actually lead to two states, not just to be an act of symbolism. But I recognise that things are changing on the ground. And for example, this plan, this E1 plan that the last government said would lead to recognition, if that is rebirthed, that would be a horrendous act that would completely breach the possibility of two states.
I just want to roll back to your prior answer, because I think you listed in terms of potential further actions, I think you said a blanket weapons ban. Earlier in our interview, you suggested, in fact, that's already in place. Can you just clarify exactly?
No, I didn't list a blanket weapons ban.
You didn't?
No.
So that is essentially already in place?
On this time, we are not sending weapons that could be used for use in Gaza. There is an exception, and that is for the F-35 supply pool, common supply pool across the global community. So there is no blanket arms embargo, because for that reason, we don't want to bring down planes that are used to keep British people safe and Europeans safe and others who have the F-35. So that is an exception on this occasion, which has meant that there is not a blanket arms embargo against Israel, but there is in terms of direct sales that could be used in Israel of any arms or weapons, and indeed any F-35s that are sold directly to Israel. But we are not, in terms of the global supply pool and the kit that we put into that global supply pool for F-35s.
So I guess there's just a bit of a gap there between suggesting there's absolutely no weapon sales to Israel that could be used in Gaza, and the fact that there are still some weapon sales to Israel?
Well, let's get this in context. The United Kingdom represents 1% of arms that are used by the IDF, 1%. Of that 1%, we have banned all sales of arms that could be used in Gaza. And we have banned any direct sales within the F-35 that could be used in Gaza. But there is a carve-out. It's a small carve-out, and it relates to our supply chain into the F-35. We cannot guarantee that there are not parts in the global pool that we buy into that could be used in Gaza. That is the exception. It's a small exception, but I think your listeners will understand when there are other theatres of conflict, particularly here in Europe, that it is important that we don't bring down the whole of the F-35 arsenal across the world, and that is the only exception.
It's really, I really am fascinated by this detail, Foreign Secretary, which I don't think we'd got before. Just to kind of, I don't want to labour the point, but your words are so strikingly powerful and significant on this topic. And I guess you, excuse me, acknowledge as well that we're only affecting 1% of sales anyway. So it's almost like it's only a symbolic action to start with. Why not go the whole way?
I think it's more than a symbolic action, actually.
Well, it hasn't changed their behaviour.
No, but it's an act that ensures, principally, that we are not complicit as a country in anything that we assess could be a clear risk of a breach of international humanitarian law. And so it is more serious than just an act for the sake of acting. It's a decision I take as Foreign Secretary in a quasi-judicial manner, and it's one that I take very soberly and very seriously. And I would say that since we came to office, we restored funding to UNRWA. The last government wasn't doing that. We suspended the arms sales, as I've described. We've taken action on sanctions. We've taken actions on a free trade agreement. We've corralled the international community, as I did again yesterday, with 28 countries supporting that statement on humanitarian aid and what we are seeing happening, particularly to children in Gaza. And we will continue to act. But principally, the number one thing is to see a ceasefire, and to see that ceasefire, to get hostages out, to get and surge the aid in and bring this horrendous conflict to a permanent end.
It's interesting, though, that it's sort of almost to absolve ourselves as opposed to have an effect in terms of the actions, which I think was implied by that answer. I need to move on and just quickly ask about the response from the Israeli Foreign Ministry, who said all statements and all claims should be directed at the only party responsible for the lack of a deal, the lack of release of hostages and a ceasefire, Hamas, which started this war and is prolonging it. They go on to say Hamas is busy running a campaign to spread lies about Israel, and they're deliberately acting to increase friction and harm to civilians who come to receive humanitarian aid. I guess a two-part question to that. Do they have a point? And are you uncomfortable with the scale of rhetoric that you felt necessary and actions that you felt necessary to take towards our ally Israel? They're still our friend and ally?
I said in terms in Parliament that, yes, Hamas is exploiting the chaos that they see in Gaza, no doubt about it. And we know that Hamas has used people as human shields in the past, and Hamas are still keeping captive many hostages, and those hostages should be released. So let's be absolutely clear. The British government has no truck with Hamas and their behaviours. But it is right to say also that Israel controls what goes in and what comes out. It controls the Gaza Strip, and it has got people now in 15%, over 2 million people in 15% of the Gaza Strip. That's higher density than anywhere else on the planet. And the circumstances of that captivity are the grimmest on the planet. And it's for that reason that the international community is speaking out. I will continue to speak out. I will continue to act. I spoke to the Israeli Foreign Minister yesterday. I urged him to step back, to think again, to end this strategy that's not working, that we warned them would not work in terms of the reduction of aid particularly, and the trucks that are piled up on the borders. That is my responsibility as Foreign Secretary, to work with others, to urge a change in behaviour, and we will continue to do that.
Foreign Secretary, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Great to see you as always. The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, there. We're going to take a quick break here on The Breakfast Show. When we come back, we'll be talking more about the build-up to the Lionesses semi-final.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problems. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Welcome back. Now the Lionesses are back in action tonight as they take on Italy for a place in the Euro finals after, well, a testy quarters against Sweden. England will be hoping to avoid extra time penalties. Of course, Jackie is in Geneva for us with the very latest. Jackie, kick-off 8 o'clock UK time. What about fans? Are they starting to arrive yet?
Oh, I'm sure fans are starting to arrive all over the city. We saw a couple arrive at our hotel last night. And it is going to be packed out tonight because, you know, the England fans, particularly for the Lionesses, you know, they like the build-up, they like the banter. It's always really good-natured. We're hearing that they're going to put some pop-up bars around the outside of the ground as well. So it should be good fun, a good atmosphere. And, you know, and why not? It's a semi-final. England are in it again. In fact, they're the second team since Germany in 2013 to actually be defending champions and make it to the semi-final of the next tournament. So everyone looking forward to it. A lot of people expect that they should have too much for Italy tonight. Italy won't think that. Certainly Serena Wiegmann and her team won't think that. She said complacency is the biggest mistake we could make. It would be very disrespectful to Italy. to underestimate them. But let's ask a fan what she thinks about that. Erin, thank you for joining us, Lionesses fan. You've been for a little swim in the lake this morning, an open water swim. Was it cold?
It was all right, to be fair. It was really refreshing. I feel very awake now.
Well, we're making you stand in the cold. What are you thinking about tonight? You nervous? You excited? Do you think they're going to do it and make another final?
I think I'm everything. I'm excited. I feel like we can do it, but like you're saying, the complacency, I just feel like if we get on the right foot straight away, then we're okay. But yeah, I'm excited, nervous, everything, all of it.
Now, Italy been sort of, I suppose, surprise semi-finalists, bit of dark horses, didn't start super well, and suddenly got better as the tournament has gone on. Yeah. And they, you know, their top scorer scored 3 goals, which is pretty good. Their captain is really passionate. I mean, she was almost in tears, the fact they got to the semi-final. It's a really big thing for them. They're fighting for something as well. I mean, they're going to believe they can do it, aren't they?
Yeah, never underestimate the underdogs. And I feel like that's where England need to respect them, because they're a great team. They work well together and they're feisty. So if we let off a little bit, then they're in with a chance. And they score some worldies, so...
Yeah, and also a lot of people think they might sort of employ a few dark arts as well to sort of disrupt the England team. Speaking of disruptors, do you think perhaps Sarina Wiegman should bring on her substitutions a bit earlier, before, 70 minutes when the game is almost done? I mean, Agyemang made such a big impact when she came on. Chloe Kelly really changed that match.
Yeah, I think potentially, I would say yes, but I think it's how the game goes. If it's how it was the other night, 100% bring them on earlier so they can get the impact. But they did come on and do their job, impacted the game, and look at the result. But if it's we're doing well from the start, maybe stick to how she's doing it anyway. And yeah, she knows what she's doing. We just got to back her.
She does know what she's doing. She's won the last 2. Well, listen, you guys are having... I know your friend was too shy to come on camera. But you guys are having a great time just touring around Switzerland, following the team.
Yes,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's hope it continues on to Basel.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. Yeah, so let's hope it continues on to Basel. Really exciting match against Italy tonight. But, surely they can't be as bad as they were at the beginning of that match against Sweden. Honestly, you would imagine the Lionesses are due a very good performance. Here's hoping.
All right, Jackie, do stay with us, because we're about to speak to someone who knows just what it takes to perform on the international stage, and it's England footballer Nikita Parris. Nikita, on paper, England have won 7 out of 10 games across all competitions with Italy. So England are the favourites going into this. But as Sarina Wiegman said, complacency is disrespectful. Talk us through what will be going through the minds of Hannah Hampton and Chloe Kelly right now.
I think you're focused on just making sure they get the job done. It was a tough game against Sweden, but they came through it, and the confidence in which they will have from that game, although it was a nervy one for everyone else, when you win penalties and you get through, it gives you that extra boost. And right now they'll be thinking about, being calm, because not too far in the distant future will be the storm in terms of the game. And, Italy won't take this game lightly, semi-finalists, massive achievement for them, but, they could not be done.
Does it matter how we play, or just the result, or is it kind of fair to say that one needs a good performance, or else you kind of rely on luck, and this is the business end of the tournament?
I think ultimately you want performance and results at this end of the tournament, but, from the Sweden game, you'll just take the result. You want to get through. Getting to that final is such a massive achievement, and, back-to-back finals. And then, when a team gets to a final, it's like everything else doesn't matter. It's kind of like the final is the one game that, anything can happen in terms of result and performance.
Nikita, who's standing out for you at the moment? I mentioned, didn't I, Chloe Kelly. Anytime she steps onto that pitch, she shines. She's been brilliant. I think it's got to do with the fact that she joined Arsenal on loan in January. But, I mean, who's standing out for you at the moment?
Do you know what? I think, the girls have all done great. I think, when they've had the time and the moment they've took it, and I think the substitutions really deserve a massive, round of applause and all of the, congratulations that they're getting, because they've made a real impact in the games when they've come on, and that's a real team spirit that they've got there, and that's super important in the tournament because, it's not just 11 players that start the game that, will help you win.
Nikita, just finally wanted to ask you in terms of where you're joining us from today. I mean, is this captivated young footballers across the country like it did 4 years ago?
Yeah, it definitely has captivated young players because they're out here today in the rain, lovely Manchester, enjoying a session powered by the National Lottery, the big football day. It's massive, grassroots sports being funded £6 billion, and, the young girls are out there having fun and ultimately creating memories and hopefully some celebrations from the Euros that they've seen.
Nikita, great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Nikita, Paris. Jackie's still standing by for us as we just wrap up this hour. And Jackie, that is a really key point to end on as well. It had a massive boost when we won 4 years ago. And the Lionesses continue to set such a fantastic example, whatever the result.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, young girls watching can look at them and say, well, actually, I can have a career in football. It's a possibility. If I train, if I apply myself, I could be one of those players. And I also noticed that in Australia at the World Cup a couple of years ago, the very same thing was happening there. Suddenly there's this wave of, my goodness, women's football is worth watching. It's fantastic. And that followed across in that country as well. And, Italy as well. They'll have set the example to young players in their country. There's a massive ripple effect. You look at Arsenal playing their matches at the Emirates in front of 55, 60,000 people when they're playing a WSL game. That would be unheard of a few years ago. I mean, football was banned until 1971 for women in this country by the FA. It's hard to imagine, isn't it?
Absolutely mad. Absolutely mad. Jackie, great stuff as always. Thanks so much. More from Jackie live as we build up to that semi-final. Much more from here in the studio on all the day's top stories, including reaction to that interview with the Foreign Secretary that we did just moments ago. We'll be right back.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock. The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, urges Israel to step back from the brink in Gaza and describes conditions there as the grimmest on the planet.
Plus, there's a Conservative reshuffle happening right now, and it looks like James Cleverly is back.
And it's a huge day for England's women at the Euros. We'll be live in Switzerland as we look forward to this evening's semi-final.
It's Tuesday, the 22nd of July. Your headlines. The Foreign Secretary says Israel must answer for killing desperate, starving children in Gaza, but rules out a blanket arms ban on Israel. Sky News reports from the American community open to white people only.
What this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I mean, it's free association.
England's Lionesses are one win away from the final at the Euros. They take on Italy tonight here in Geneva.
There are going to be all kinds of people. They'll just want to get close to you because you're talented.
And we talked to Christina Aguilera about taking burlesque from the big screen to the West End.
Have you spoken to Cher? Is she coming to London? We're hoping.
I mean, yeah, she's always welcome.
A very good morning to you. The Foreign Secretary has described the conditions in Gaza as the grimmest on the planet as he urged Israel's Foreign Minister to step back. Well, we'll be talking to Mari about that in just a moment. But first, let's revisit some of what the Foreign Secretary told us earlier, where he did say there was a clear risk to international law being breached.
I made the assessment that there was a clear risk of a breach of international humanitarian law, and for that reason we suspended arms sales that could be used in Gaza. I recognise the debates that are going on. In the end, it will be for the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice to make a determination on the substance of what is being said. But my responsibility is to ensure that the British government, and as a consequence our public, are not complicit in anything that could be a breach of international humanitarian law, and that's for that reason we're not sending arms to Israel that could be used in Gaza.
Are you uncomfortable with the scale of rhetoric that you felt necessary and actions that you felt necessary to take towards our ally Israel? They're still our friend and ally.
And the circumstances of that captivity are the grimmest on the planet. And it's for that reason that the international community is speaking out. I will continue to speak out. I will continue to act. I spoke to the Israeli foreign minister yesterday. I urged him to step back, to think again, to end this strategy that's not working, that we warned them would not work in terms of the reduction of aid, particularly, and the trucks that are piled up on the borders. That is my responsibility as Foreign Secretary, to work with others, to urge a change in behaviour, and we will continue to do that.
Mari, I thought it was just fascinating how much extra kind of detail we got on exactly what has been banned and what hasn't. And I think there was sort of two standouts for me on that. This number that we dwelt on since last September, that only 30 weapons export licences have been suspended out of hundreds, he quite clearly framed as being all of the relevant ones of direct weapons sales to Israel, which I'm not sure was fully framed in that way in the past, albeit acknowledging that there are some parts, particularly for the F-35 jet, that get sold generically to the ultimate maker of that jet, and then we don't know where the jet gets sold to. So you could sort of spin that both ways as to whether the action meets the rhetoric, which is very strong, or whether there's still quite a big gap between the two.
Yeah, I think if you look at what David Lammy said this morning, he justified everything the government has done so far. He didn't go any further. He didn't commit to doing anything else. He talked about how he recognised the debate around recognising the state of Palestine, and he talked about how actually that was partly about timing and making sure that the timing was appropriate, and that he didn't want it to be just symbolic, although many people would argue it is really only symbolic anyway. recognising the state of Palestine isn't going to stop all those people potentially starving to death. But nonetheless, the rhetoric is hardening. The actions haven't yet changed. He's very much leaving it up to the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, to make a determination about whether any war crimes have been committed. He didn't want to say. He said, I've always had a concern since the autumn of last year that there was a possibility of war crimes being committed, and he's still stood by that, but nonetheless won't make that determination, is very firmly leaving that in the hands of the international courts in order to make sure that he doesn't prejudice or look like he is essentially calling something out without potentially solid evidence. And therefore, he's in a bit of a situation now where actually, he said at the end of that clip, he's been urging the Israeli foreign minister to step back, talking about the grimmest on the planet in terms of the conditions that people in Gaza are living with. But nonetheless, it doesn't feel that those calls are being listened to, that we have much of a sway when it comes to actually getting in the room and getting people to do what we want them to.
Well, there was kind of an acknowledgement of that, because he sort of said that one of the reasons I did this weapons licence ban was to make sure we weren't complicit, as opposed to him saying to lead to actions changing at the other end, which I thought was interesting. I also thought it was interesting, given the chance to really side with Israel's plight, didn't take it. Criticised Hamas again, but quite quickly pivoted back. So I thought that was very interesting. Really well worth watching the full interview if people haven't. Quickly on the Conservative side of things, reshuffle is happening. Another hour has passed. Have we learnt what role? We know James Cleverly is back?
James Cleverly is back. We don't know what he's doing yet. We're still trying to find out. We're all making frantic calls and texts to try and find out what brief he's going to be given. So we don't know yet, but he is making a comeback. The reshuffle is underway. I have been trying to decipher who's safe, who's not safe. It's still a very fast-moving situation. But interesting, I think, will be what James Cleverly would be willing to accept, considering he's considered to be a bit of a Tory big beast. He's had a leadership campaign in the past. He's already been Foreign Secretary. He's already been Home Secretary. So realistically, it feels to me he's not going to accept just anything in the cabinet.
It surely means it, but we know it's not Chancellor, Shadow Chancellor.
We know it's not Shadow Chancellor, but we don't know what else it could possibly be. So we're still trying to figure it out rather than just speculating.
Well, we shall see. Very, very interesting. I think it can't be anything but those other two, Foreign or Home, I would imagine, because he's been there. Anything else would be
He has been there, but then is that a helpful thing if he's already been there?
Well, fine, yeah, but that might mean he's not offered more, but equally he's got to accept it. But we shall see. Very, very interesting little bit of Game of Thrones moving around the pieces to unfold throughout the morning. Mari, as always, great stuff. Thanks very much. Right, we've now got a report from a community in Arkansas that say only white straight people are welcome. Sky's Tom Cheshire was invited to visit the group, which is part of a wider online movement with supporters around the world. When he challenged them over trying to bring back segregation, they said they wanted a place where they could control who their neighbours were. Here's Tom's report.
High up in the Ozark Hills in the state of Arkansas, dozens of people have been working hard, building houses and a new type of community. It's called Return to the Land, and it is a town open to white people only. They are millennials and Gen Z, and this is a new update of age-old prejudice. No blacks, no Jews, no gays. Its founder, Eric Orwell, invited me in because they believe what they are doing is completely legal.
Welcome to the Ozarks.
Thank you very much.
What we've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites-only place.
White American culture. Yeah, not just white, but white American.
But what this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, it's free association. So we're not trying to keep other people down. This is a small settlement in the middle of the Ozarks.
But they are being kept out, even if...
You don't let everyone into your home.
Around 40 people live here. Hundreds more from across the world have paid to be members. And while the men do the physical labour, the women take care of the children who live here full-time.
It's a loving movement.
I mean, on that aspect of it being loving, I suppose the counter-argument would be it could be a very loving community if you're part of the community, but if you're black, or if you're Jewish, or if you're gay, you can't be part of that community.
They can have their own communities, and they already do, and I think that's great for them. If other people are allowed to do it, I don't really see why whites aren't allowed to do it. It doesn't make any sense.
But the goal is to have lots of these communities and for it maybe not to be rural, for there to be cities on the same basis, right?
Yeah, that would be neat. I look forward to seeing how this movement grows over time.
Return to the land is only the most radical example of a growing trend. These are all the white supremacist incidents, demonstrations, leafleting, recruitment drives, meetups over the last 4 years in the US, tracked by ACLED, an organisation that monitors violent conflict and protest. There's been a dramatic increase over that period. It has become a background thrum of nationalist activity. You might be wondering how any of this can be legal. Return to the Land is structured as a private members' association, which they believe allows them to discriminate on the basis of ethnicity, along with other factors. That has yet to be tested in the courts and may well fail, according to civil rights experts.
If you really look deep in the Civil Rights Act, where it states that, no, it doesn't state that. And I think they misunderstand what it states, because there have been many organizations that tried to carve that out and say, hey, there are certain people I want to hear and certain people I don't, and there was a lawsuit. And the person who filed the lawsuit won, because you cannot carve out and say, I want this group of people in and this group of people out. That's not right.
Right or not, they are doing it and they are growing it. The Arkansas Attorney General has said his office is now reviewing the matter as a result of our reporting, and that there is no room for racial discrimination in Arkansas or anywhere in a free society. We contacted the governor of Arkansas, but did not receive any response. Return to the Land, though, hopes to be a beacon for its political ideals. Others will look at the same flames and see something very dangerous. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Arkansas.
Well, you can watch the full version of Tom Cheshire's report tonight on The World from 9 p.m. or by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. Well worth doing that. But let's get up to speed now on all the day's other stories, kicking off with the Lionesses.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Wilfred. England's Lionesses take on Italy tonight, don't they, in the semi-finals of the Euros. Let's go live to Jackie Baltrout in Geneva for us. England, Jackie, reigning champs, but Italy, I feel like they're riding the wave of joy, of confidence, and I wonder how that might impact the game for England.
Yeah, definitely they're not going to be underestimating Italy tonight, even though their record's really, really good against them. In recent years, their last 5 matches, unbeaten, 4 of them wins, including a 5-1 win in February. But there is a feeling amongst the pundits, and I don't know, they obviously know a lot more than I do, that they might have a lot of good game management, shall we say, Italy tonight. They might try and disrupt the game. Also, you know, they've been scoring goals through their captain, Christina Aguilera, as well. So she could be a bit of a handful. And England know that they can't underestimate this team because, after all, they're in the semis.
And Jackie, on paper, obviously, England go into this as the favourites, but just trying to edge it in there. Obviously, Italy, slight underdogs on this one. And I just wonder if that could disrupt anything in the camp and the feeling of overcoming that will be prominent and front and centre, I suppose.
I don't suppose the team will particularly be thinking about whether they're underdogs or favourites or whatnot. I think it's more, we've got to perform better than we did at the start of the match against Sweden, otherwise we're in trouble, as they were against Sweden. And I think there was a feeling after that match, a lot of relief, a lot of happiness, but also we're pretty lucky to be in this position because we could have so easily have gone out of this tournament already. Let's play better. The impact subs that came on there, Michelle Ajuman, Chloe Kelly, really did change that match, and the way Lucy Bronze sort of took it by the scruff of the neck too. So I don't know if she'll make any changes, if she'll make them quicker, but it's a big match, and they want to defend their title. They want to get through to that final, and a lot of these players are big game players.
Jackie, looking at the shot looks fantastic. Geneva looks incredible there as a backdrop. It's so great that this tournament is back on our rough time zone. You know, Australia was harder to follow. Obviously, it's not quite as good as when it's in our backyard 4 years ago. But what's the atmosphere there like, and what's the level of following domestically in Switzerland?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because the Swiss team went out. They did really well to get to the quarterfinals, and the following for them was really good. And you do see, as I said earlier, that ripple effect in a country when they host a tournament like this. You suddenly have huge interest if the team does well. And for Switzerland, getting to the quarterfinals was a really good result. We saw it again in Australia. They got to the semi-finals of their own World Cup, and it just the nation became obsessed, as you know, England did a little bit when England got to the final of the Euros last time. So I think it will have a really good impact in this country in terms of girls playing football going forward and having opportunities to play football. And when you can see that, you know, your national team is supported, and actually that's a potential job for me if I'm a 9-year-old girl who's really good at football. Yeah, that's a good thing to be aspiring to, and we're definitely going to be seeing that going forward. And for Italy too, who've only had professional football in their country for 3 years, the big clubs like Juventus and AC Milan and Inter supporting those women's teams. I mean, before that, they couldn't earn more than $30,000 from playing football in Italy. So how far they've come in that short time is really quite incredible to find themselves in this position. And we know the situation with the Lionesses. Many of them now household names, and you wouldn't have been able to say that, you know, 4 or 5 years ago.
All right, Jackie, for now, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. OK, let's take a look at some of the day's other stories for you. And gang leaders, corrupt police officers and companies selling small boat equipment for channel crossings will have their assets frozen under new sanctions targeting people smugglers and their enablers. The government will also be able to impose travel bans and block access to the UK's financial system. Elsewhere, there's a row between NHS England and the British Medical Association over staffing levels during a 5-day strike by resident doctors, formerly known, of course, as junior doctors. NHS England has told hospitals to only cancel non-urgent care in exceptional cases, but the BMA says this risks patient safety, warning that emergency services could be left understaffed. The walkout is set to begin at 7 o'clock on Friday morning. A police officer who shot Breonna Taylor in her home in Kentucky in a raid in 2020 has been sentenced to nearly 3 years in jail. So Brett Hankinson was one of 3 officers who blindly fired into the house, but they only charged one. 26-year-old's death, as well as George Floyd's shortly after, sparked racial injustice protests, and the judge disagreed with the Justice Department, which had argued no prison sentence was necessary. And the actor Malcolm Jamal Warner, who played the Crosby Show character Theo, has died in Costa Rica. Authorities say the 54-year-old drowned off the country's Caribbean coast while on holiday with his family. Desperately sad, that one.
Very sad indeed. And switching focus, so a little bit, Leah, you've been speaking to someone pretty epic.
Yep, I'm going to name drop here. Christina Aguilera. I sat down with her to talk about her journey into the West End stage, and we can have a bit of a taster now.
Have you spoken to Cher? Is she coming to London? We're hoping.
I mean, yeah, she's always welcome to grace us
welcome.
with her incredible, iconic presence. And I'm just so grateful that I had the time in the movie with her.
Dina starred with Cher in a movie in 2020 called Burlesque. She's now bringing it to the West End stage. I sat down with her. The full interview will be later this hour, about 8:45.
I'm looking forward to that, Leah. Great stuff. Now, the National Archives have released a number of files relating to both the royal family and the Blair administration, offering a glimpse into the past. Ashna's been diving into that for us. Ashna, what are some of the sort of standout items that perhaps we don't typically talk about?
Well, I think many people watching at home might remember the Royal Yacht Britannia. It was a much, much, much loved part of the royal family, particularly for Queen Elizabeth II. It was decommissioned in 1997. This is at a decommissioning ceremony in Portsmouth. But about 4 years before this was happening, in 1993, John Major's Conservative government had a big decision to make. They had to decide whether this particular yacht that she adored, whether they could afford to pay some £50 million from the taxpayer to refurb it. It was falling apart at the time. And it was widely thought that the Queen strongly favoured it, given how much she loved it. But the royal family couldn't be seen to influence any political decision-making. Now, in these National Archive files, it's now come to light that her senior aides, including her private secretary, did approach Number 10 and ask the Prime Minister to essentially show support for the yacht in a very subtle way, even kind of constructing part of his speech for him, wanting him to say it's always been difficult to put a price on prestige, but things like the royal yacht, the train, do have immeasurable value to this country. Now, the plans were promptly scuppered by the Cabinet Office. Understandably, they said, look, this could be prejudicial to any future decision-making. You might say yes to it now, but it'd make it very difficult for us to go back on our word. And one official said within these files that the claim by the palace that the Queen was indifferent to the outcome of this hardly rings true. This was all happening in 1993, fresh out of 1992's Annus Horribilis, in which Charles and Diana split, of course, and there was major public backlash at the time over a ginormous cost to restore Windsor Castle at the time that they were already paying. So despite the palace's protesting of neutrality, perhaps some subtle lobbying was going on in the background.
Doesn't surprise me that much.
Really?
Subtle lobbying. I mean, of course that kind of thing happens, doesn't it? Well, it does.
It did.
It did. Anyway, really, really interesting stuff. And great old pictures there, the Royal Yacht Britannia and the late Queen. Now, more victims of the infected blood scandal will now be able to claim compensation under proposed changes to the existing scheme. Between the 1970s and the early 90s, more than 30,000 people in the UK were infected with HIV and hepatitis C while receiving NHS care. Richard Warwick was infected with HIV and hepatitis B after receiving contaminated blood products while being treated for haemophilia at school. And he joins us now. A very good morning to you, Richard. Just tell us and our viewers a little bit about what happened to you.
OK, I was born with haemophilia, a severe condition that stops your blood from clotting, basically. And at the age of 11, I was infected with hepatitis B, C and HIV through the treatment I was given while I was at a specialist school down in Hampshire.
And I mean, how did that must have drastically affected things for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, work was completely out of the question. I was very, very ill. At the age of 16, I weighed about 9 or 10 stone and was effectively given 2 years to live when I was finally diagnosed and told I was HIV positive in the late 80s.
Have you received compensation yet? Tell us about the process you've been through personally since a lot of this has come to light.
OK, well, everybody that's actually registered on the schemes in England and Wales and Northern Ireland has received one interim payment or 2 interim payments, and that was done under Sir Brian Langstaff's instructions because so many people were dying at such an alarming rate, and he felt that it was only right that rather than have them die and not receive anything, they should at least have some money in the interim, hence interim payment, until they get their final lump sum. What actually happens is that interim payment is taken off your allotted final lump sum.
And do you have any expected timeline for the final lump sum?
I'm fortunate enough that I've actually received my invitation. Don't like the term invitation, but that's what they call it. And I'm now sort of in the works, if you like, and I'm waiting to hear back from them and see what they are going to offer.
And I mean, how has this part of it impacted your life? The delay in the payments, as you said, the wording of it, the process of having to engage rather than just be given it. I mean, it must cause great disappointment and stress.
Sure, it's soul destroying because you get your hopes up. You're keen to move on with things. You've been set back so many times. I mean, we've been at this now for 30, nearly 40 years, trying to get some sort of redress, some sort of justice. And every time something looked as though it might happen, it's been knocked back The inquiry started in 2018. That ran over its allotted or suggested 2-year time frame that it was supposed to run. That ran for nearly 6 years. So it's just been one thing after another. And after yesterday's statement in the House of Commons from the Paymaster General, my wife and I both watched it, and we're actually pleasantly surprised that these additional recommendations that Sir Brian recommended, the government are actually going to take, I think, all but 2 of them up. There's 2 that need further consultations, but things like recognising severe psychological harm, something that you just talked about there, and that the stress and worry that it causes people, an additional autonomy award for unethical research, because a lot of children were used as guinea pigs throughout the 80s. That's going to be addressed. Effectively, children were exploited and abused as youngsters, 8, 9, 10 years old, to test treatments on. Totally reprehensible, but they're going to look at that again, hopefully.
So do you feel like a satisfactory end is now in sight?
We can only hope. There's a lot of people to get through. I believe 2,200 people have been contacted to start their claim, and I believe around 805 have received compensation. So there's another, about 50% of the way there with the people who are infected currently nationwide, as far as getting their claims started. And then, of course, there's all the people that are affected. There's a lot of very frail, elderly, and ill parents of people that are on the last days. Thankfully, one of the recommendations that came was addressed yesterday was that people will be able to say my father's particularly ill. He probably hasn't got too long to live, but rather than his claim die with him, I will be able to claim on his behalf, and that money will go to our estate. So that's a big weight off our shoulders.
Richard, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you luck with resolution on all of these matters. Richard Warwick, a victim of the infected blood scandal there. So to come here on The Breakfast Show, we're going to be talking about smartphones in schools and some legal action that's been brought to the government's door. Should smartphones be banned? We'll debate.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse.
generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back to The Breakfast Show. Well, coming up in just a moment, should smartphones be banned in schools? We'll debate that. Plus, we'll have more of Leah's sit-down with Christina Aguilera. But first, a reminder of all of the day's top stories.
Thank you, Wilfred. The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, has called on Israel's foreign minister to take a step back, describing conditions in Gaza as the grimmest on the planet. Mr. Lammy said there's a clear risk Israel has already breached international law. And the government has suspended some arms licences, but stopped short of calling for a blanket ban on arms to Israel. Sky News has become the first news organisation to spend time at a settlement in Arkansas in the US, which is hoping to create a whites-only community. The model has been created by the American far right and is now spreading across the country through the US, and the courts there have yet to determine whether such a movement is legal. And people smugglers could lose their assets, or have their assets frozen rather, as the government seeks to put an end to illegal people smuggling. New powers granted under the Sanctions Act would also prevent people smugglers being allowed to enter the UK. And Kemi Badenoch has begun to reshuffle her shadow cabinet. Sky News understands the former Homes and Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, has agreed to return to the Conservative front bench. And England's Lionesses will be hoping to make yet more history this evening by roaring into their third final in a row. There's just one thing standing in their way. Italy will also have one eye on the final.
Yeah, great stuff, thank you. Now, two fathers are planning to take legal action against the government in an attempt to get smartphones banned in schools across England. Will Orr-Ewing and Pete Montgomery say the current guidance, which allows head teachers to decide on smartphone usage, is unlawful and unsafe for children. We can speak to Will now, and also joining us here in studio is Christine Cunliffe, the head of independent school LVS Ascot. A very good morning to you both. Christine, I'll start with you if I can, to re-clarify for our viewers what the rules are at the moment, which is you have the power to ban smartphones, but you're not directed to by the government to do so.
Not at the moment. I think the majority of schools do actually ban mobile phones at the moment, including my school.
Does it come into effect? Is it effective, your ban, or do you think it would be more helpful to have further pressure from the government to do so?
No, I don't think we should have pressure from the government. It's OK, if the government can give pressure to schools to help them, then fair enough. But I think head teachers need to be brave enough to say, it's not happening in my school, and we don't need those mobile phones in school either. Ours has been in place for about 2 years, and we've seen a marked difference in attention, children being sociable with each other, talking to each other rather than being head deep in phones, and obviously the natural dangers that come with having mobile phones generally.
Will, why do you think it has to go further then? Why does there have to be a blanket ban by government?
Good morning. Well, very sadly, only about 11% of UK schools have a proper effective smartphone ban. So although head teachers do in theory have the power, at the moment they're not exercising it in a way that keeps kids safe.
And in terms of taking this to the stage of legal action, under what grounds do you think this is unsafe for children and a government responsibility?
Well, at the moment, the situation is just mad because at multiple times in the day, particularly on the way to and from school, but also in toilets, often in the playing grounds, other parts of the school day, children, often younger than 11, but particularly at secondary from 11, have unsupervised access to their phones. So we're challenging the safeguarding legislation which was published last week on the grounds of human rights. So we think that there is a degrading part of children having access to these phones, but particularly on this question of irrationality, because the government says that it's got this protection at the moment for schools and phones, but at the moment we're hoping to prove that that's not effective, and that we can, through a statutory ban, make smartphones inaccessible throughout the school day.
Government have said, quote, schools already have the power to ban phones and we support head teachers to take the necessary steps to prevent disruption, backed by our clear guidance on how to restrict their use. Christine, you're kind of nodding a bit as some of Will's answer. Do you think there's a lot of use in toilets on the way and home from school? But is that actually a problem?
It is. And I fully back Will with what he's doing, actually, because the thing is with mobile phones and children, they're going to use them, put them in front of them, they're going to use those phones whenever they can. And I think some head teachers might need the reinforcement of the backing of the government to be able to put that to enforce in their school. But I think head teachers across the country need to be brave and say, it's not happening in my school. We're not going to have mobile phones, and we're going to have the policies and procedures in place to ensure that they're not used throughout the day. There's going to be times, for example, in our school where children have got a long journey at the end of the day, and I understand the need for those on the way to and from school. But still, policies that go against our acceptable user or go against our safeguarding guidelines would be, we would sanction children even if outside of school they use their mobile phone inappropriately.
And just summarise for us, Christine, why you think it is just such a problem as a starting point, why smartphones are a problem for children at school.
Well, I think it's a very attractive piece of metal device. You can access anything on there, can't you? And it's okay if you've got the necessary guidelines in place and the settings on it to protect your children. But there's a lot of parents who don't do that. And I think they don't realise what the dangers are until something happens. It's normally after the horse has bolted. So I think parents need to be aware of the dangers of using mobile phones when it's appropriate to use them. And in school, it's not appropriate to use them.
Will, have you had a response to this legal action from the government directly?
Not yet. They've got until Friday to respond. So they're given 14 days after we send in our pre-action letter. So we await with interest to see what they say. But just to go back to what Christine was saying, I mean, I think what we're trying to do is to redefine or to try and bring clarity to this question of where the school's duty of care stops. And travel to and from school and these other sort of grey areas in the school day, we think a school's duty of care should cover them. And so it's not enough to say, well, on those journeys, on those school trips, for example, it kind of reverts back to a child's choice or to a family's choice. Because that wherever you've got unsupervised access, that's where we're seeing all these problems with smartphones. And just to sort of articulate those problems that you just asked, Christine, it's particularly questions of content, so it's really harmful content, hardcore pornography, very violent content, torture of animals, those kinds of things are being seen day in and day out by 11, 12, 13-year-olds on these school buses. It should never have been allowed to happen. The smartphone has just, it's such an innovative piece of kit which has just swept through childhood. At the moment, it's just not safe. And so we're particularly focusing on bringing government's ambitions for children's safeguarding, which they want to be one of the sort of forward-leading countries in protecting children, and bringing that into line with the reality of how unsafe children are at the moment because they've got this unsupervised access to their phones.
I guess my question to that, Will, would be, I mean, even if we put aside the big tech companies and the smartphone makers and the software makers, should your concern not primarily either be with parents who might allow the free use of phones for many more hours than the school day and the route to school and back encompasses, or on the 90% of head teachers who aren't enforcing a ban that they could already? Why is your action against the government not any of those other groups?
Great question. And I think families are beginning to take action and to delay buying their child a smartphone. But this is more about correcting something which should never have been allowed to happen. Heads are under so much pressure, so many resource constraints at the moment, that by saying to them, by allowing the smartphone in through the school gates and to sort of marinate itself across the school day as it does at the moment, should not have been allowed to happen in the last 10, 15 years. And we're just trying to correct that, take it off heads' plates. And rather than have this patchwork situation where you've got one school like Christine's that has one policy, another that has a slightly different policy, you're just saying these things are not safe to have in schools. One of schools' jobs is to keep children safe, and therefore they have no place in a school. And I think that feels like a realistic, achievable goal that a government which is committed to protecting British families can affect without major legislation.
Will, Christine, thank you both very much for joining us. Much appreciated. Really interesting discussion. Now, public borrowing hit £20.7 billion last month, the second highest figure since records began. The Office of National Statistics says the rise was caused by increased spending on public services and debt interest payments, which rose faster than income from taxes and national insurance. A significant excess number, of course, putting pressure on the government. But either way, we're moving towards a statement this autumn that looks like it will include tax increases. Now, little-known international conventions being blamed for slowing down Britain's house-building efforts. The Our House Convention, not little known if you've been watching Sky News and Sam Coates' coverage, caps the cost of bringing legal challenges against new developments, which is helping to stall major new projects. And Sam Coates has been diving in once again.
For this site, there will be 165 homes.
All over the country, legal battles like this. John Wotton has been trying to save these fields between two housing developments. The cost to campaigners like him limited because of a little-known international law.
Could you have brought the case to try and stop these houses if taxpayers didn't step in to pay some of the costs of the opposing side?
We would have had to think very carefully about whether we could impose that financial risk on the charity.
Behind you there's a housing development, in front of you there's a housing development. What difference really would it make if there were some here?
If you take that argument to its extreme, you can always build another estate. You can always extend. The right to challenge decisions taken by public bodies, including ministers, is a vital democratic right.
60 metres behind me, urgently needed housing is being constructed. But in this field here, nothing, even though it's 4 years since planning approval was given. 200 metres that way, another housing development. The story of why there aren't shovels in the ground right here, right now, helps explain why Britain struggles to get building.
Sky News has been reporting for months about a £10,000 cap on costs, which is stopping building. That's because Britain has signed up to the Aarhus Convention to help environmental challenges. In this case, the developers won against the campaign group, with taxpayers again picking up the tab. Berkeley Homes said the system was incredibly slow, uncertain, and the situation was absurd. Not least because of the way Britain interprets the Aarhus Convention, which is unique. This lawyer, who has represented government and campaigners, said the convention means more legally adventurous claims.
There shouldn't be challenges going through which are an attempt to relitigate the planning merits, because the judges have been incredibly clear this is not for them. That said, it's not uncommon for disappointed people in the planning system to effectively try and relitigate the case.
Remember this man, Andrew Boswell, who Keir Starmer made the poster boy for NIMBYs, challenging big infrastructure projects. Years of this site staying desolate after he challenged a carbon capture and storage project due in Teesside. In the last few weeks, his case thrown out.
So the judgment handed down by the court behind me was scathing. It says that Dr. Boswell's approach is, we think, a classic example of the misuse of judicial review in order to continue a campaign against a development once a party has lost the argument on the planning merits. So more costs, more delays on a case that judges seem to think should not have been brought.
Several government figures have told me they think our Aarhus membership is mad, but it's the Tories who are demanding action.
We've got to reform the planning system,
and we've got to ensure that judicial review is not used to gum up the system. And this convention is clearly one of the issues that has to be addressed.
Should we pull out? How could we reform it? What should we do?
We either reform it, if that's possible. I'm very sceptical. If that isn't possible, then we absolutely should think about leaving.
The government wants 1.5 million new homes in 4 years. That's the time it's taken arguing over this site here. Can ministers meet their goal without real change? Sam Coates, Sky News, Cranbrook in Kent.
Sam will be joining us as well next hour to discuss that and today's latest episode of Politics at Sam and Anne's, where they did predict a little bit of a Tory reshuffle that is happening as we speak. We'll also still to come praise from pop star Christina Aguilera as her film Burlesque opens as a musical on the West End.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problems. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
1, 2, 3, say
These Southern boys are fixing critters.
This is the first Peacock microchip.
You don't see many axolotls from everywhere. And there's no place they'd rather be.
Hey, what's been going on? Pretty big boys there.
Hakuna Matata. Animals will find a way to get injured. How do you eat a whole sock?
The craziest ones find their way to critter fix. Hey, let the journey continue. Appreciate you.
Brand new Critter Fixers start Sunday the 10th of August on Wild.
Well, welcome back to The Breakfast Show. Well, time to speak a little bit about Christina Aguilera, or a lot actually. We're going to dive into your interview yesterday.
Yeah, I went to the Savoy Hotel to speak to Christina Aguilera, and it's all because she's bringing a movie that she starred in 2010 to the West End stage. And it's quite a big deal for her. Mm-hmm. She's evolved from this bubblegum pop era of Genie in a Bottle and Come On Over to really kind of reinventing herself in Stripped, which was outside of the box and propelled her to stardom overnight. But now she's trying something new and creating new boundaries with her creativity. Here's my sit-down interview with my new best friend, Christina Aguilera.
I suppose we have to start right at the beginning and how surreal it must be for both of you, really, to bring burlesque, that cult film, that warm hug on a Sunday morning of a film, to the stage. I mean, it must be quite surreal, Christina.
I love that, you know, comparison, warm hug.
Yes.
It does feel like that, even coming back, embracing and connecting with Stephen again on such a magical project, to see it being breathed new life into. It's just so beautiful to see the cast of characters and the talent that's on this stage, and to absorb it and appreciate just the fresh takes on things. I love seeing it. I love actually taking a step back in a back seat, because like when you're in it, it's just like you can't fully enjoy it because you're just focused on the work. But it's beautiful to see you know, the reinvention of something that was so special to us.
And for you, Stephen, just talk to us a little bit about why you decided to do this now, in particular, decades after working with Christina on the film and bringing it to the stage.
It's always been something that we have wanted to do. We talked about it when we were making the movie, and it was so obvious, I think, to all of us that this would play on stage and be, you know, something that people would embrace on the stage, and sometimes even more so than the movie in a way, because it lends itself to a live theatrical experience, because it's a show within a show. So it's a club within a movie. You know, it took a long time. We kissed a lot of frogs to get here, you know? We did. You know, there were many versions of the script and many, you know, different workshops, and we did previews, and you know, it takes a long time to get a project to the stage, and it took us a long time to get it here, but it's been something we've been talking about for 15 years.
My goodness.
Right?
The character, Ali, was essentially created by Stephen for you in mind. And given that, Christina, was it difficult to cast Ali in the 21st century for modern audiences? And did you ever think, maybe I should do it?
I love, and especially having a career where you look back on and see new generations experience and embody your work. I love that. I love taking a back seat and sort of getting re-inspired in a way and seeing a fresh take. The songs and the material were so special to me, from Bound to You, being such an intimate and vulnerable piece of work where she's sort of owning her womanhood and coming into her own and finding herself in this vulnerable space with love, but still, you know, empowering such a fiery persona on stage. You kind of have to have the balance of the best of both worlds. And I really loved the way Jess sort of embodied that, and bringing new interpretation and new vocals to the table that, I mean, just blow the audience away. I was blown away.
Can I just ask, have you spoken to Cher? Is she coming to London? Will she watch?
We're hoping.
I mean, yeah, she's always welcome to grace us with her incredible, iconic presence. And I'm just so grateful that I had the time in the movie with her. I mean, looking back, it's just like, did that even happen?
We can't not talk about your amazing career as this solo artist, from Jeannie, who you know I've played to my daughter in the car, so to Stripped, which was you stepping outside of that bubblegum pop. What do you remember of that time, stepping outside of the box with Beautiful, with all of these iconic tunes that made you different?
It was important to me that I stepped out on my own and reflected all sides of me as a woman, embracing my sexuality and sensuality, and my body, and everything was stripped to dirty, which was so fun. And I just loved those chaps, and everything about that was just so
Did you always
fun
feel
and
supported
raw.
back then?
I mean, throughout any career, I think there's going to be things that, you know, are not fully received by every audience member, but that's part of being an artist. You know, you have to stay true to yourself and your authenticity and make it make sense for you, because I think the honesty in that will always shine through.
If you could do your career over again, would you do it in the 90s? Or would you do it now, here and now, with artists like Charlie XCX?
It has to stay where it was. You know, I think everything has its own time and place, and, you know, it wouldn't be the same if I was in this format, and, you know, social media wasn't even a thing back then, and, you know, all of that. I think things are really special, and that was a different time in music where there was no stream. Like, what was there? Maybe there was the beginning of it, but, you know, it was a time when you could still, like, go to you know, Virgin Records or like wherever and buy the CDs and look at the packaging. Like, it was a fun, memorable time for music. And you know, you don't, sometimes the authenticity is missed, but then you have the opportunity as an artist now to really present yourself in ways that it's not just through the media's eyes. You know, you can be more of the narrator in real time. There's a give and take in both, but it's got to live in the 90s.
As it was. All about the 90s. I'm with you, girl. Listen, thank you so much for your time, Stephen. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having us.
And just the best of luck. It's going to be such fun.
So that was such fun, by the way.
Thank
did you have fun?
I mean, they were a really lovely group of people because, of course, what everyone else didn't see is on the stage there were publicists, there were makeup artists. So you have to really get in there quick and have a real rapport instantly, which I think I did quite well.
You did. It's not easy.
It's an interesting take, really, how she's kind of turned around her career to become relevant and now be in the background being an executive producer, director on what could be a really huge West End hit.
Yeah, and is it already out? Or there's previews?
Previews tonight, and it runs until the 6th of September at the Savoy.
There we go. Great stuff, and congrats, Leah, on that. Right, let's have a quick look at the weather. The next few days will stay unsettled with further thundery downpours, but it's looking dry from Thursday. Northern Ireland and eastern parts of Britain and Ireland are generally fine now, but Western Britain is mostly cloudy with showery outbreaks. The west of Ireland has some more scattered showers. The morning looks like turning quite cloudy generally, with showers developing widely, concentrated in the east. Thundery downpours are possible, but the showers will be mostly lighter than recently. The afternoon will bring little change, although Ireland will see showers turning heavy in the south, and showers will tend to fade overnight, but a few will linger over southern Britain and near eastern English and western Irish coasts. We've got lots more still to come here on The Breakfast Show. We'll be revisiting some of the highlights of our interview with the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, and bring you more details on that ongoing Conservative reshuffle. We'll be right back on The Breakfast Show.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, urges Israel to step back and describes conditions in Gaza as the grimmest on the planet.
Plus, there's a Conservative reshuffle happening right now, and James Cleverly is back.
And it's a huge day for England's women at the Euros. We'll speak to a former Italian World Cup winner as we look forward to tonight's semi-final.
It's Tuesday, the 22nd of July. Your headlines. The Foreign Secretary says Israel must answer for killing desperate, starving children in Gaza, but rejects calls for a blanket arms ban on Israel.
I will continue to speak out. I will continue to act. I spoke to the Israeli Foreign Minister yesterday. I urged him to step back.
Sky News reports from the American community open to white people only.
England's Lionesses are just one win away from a place in the finals of the Euros. Again, they play Italy tonight here in Geneva.
There are going to be all kinds of people.
And we talked to Christina Aguilera about taking burlesque from the big screen to the West End.
One of us has underestimated the other.
Have you spoken to Cher? Is she coming to London?
We're hoping.
I mean, yeah, she's always welcome.
A very good morning to you. The Foreign Secretary has described the conditions in Gaza as the grimmest on the planet, as he urged Israel's Foreign Minister to step back. Speaking to Sky News this morning, David Lammy said there's a clear risk that international law has been breached in the war in Gaza, but has rejected calls for a blanket ban on arms sales to Israel.
I made the assessment that there was a clear risk of a breach of international humanitarian law, and for that reason we suspended arms sales that could be used in Gaza. I recognise the debates that are going on. In the end, it will be for the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice to make a determination on the substance of what is being said. But my responsibility is to ensure that the British government, and as a consequence our public, are not complicit in anything that could be a breach of international humanitarian law, and that's for that reason we're not sending arms to Israel that could be used in Gaza.
Are you uncomfortable with the scale of rhetoric that you felt necessary and actions that you felt necessary to take towards our ally Israel? They're still our friend and ally.
And the circumstances of that captivity are the grimmest on the planet. And it's for that reason that the international community is speaking out. I will continue to speak out. I will continue to act. I spoke to the Israeli Foreign Minister yesterday. I urged him to step back, to think again, to end this strategy that's not working, that we warned them would not work in terms of the reduction of aid, particularly, and the trucks that are piled up on the borders. That is my responsibility as Foreign Secretary, to work with others, to urge a change in behaviour, and we will continue to do that.
Well, Mari's here to discuss all this. I thought it was really a fascinating sort of snapshot, or deep dive, actually, in terms of the detail of what they have said, what they haven't said, and exactly where he stands on it. And in one sense, it was quite a lot of clarity that, in fact, he's banned pretty much all the weapons exports that he practically can. And I guess in that sense, there was an argument that it's close to his rhetoric. On another side, you look at it, and as he acknowledged, only 1% of Israel's total weapons imports. And is it all just window dressing?
Yeah, and I think the difficulty is that a lot of critics would argue a lot of this stuff is symbolic, and therefore let's focus on hard action that will change, improve people's lives in Gaza, save people's lives in Gaza. I think to an extent, David Lammy, in the interview this morning, was really trying to explain and defend, perhaps, the government's position. And that's because there is growing appetite for more action on Israel. There is growing appetite for the UK government to recognise the state of Palestine. And therefore, he said acknowledged the kind of the feeling and the appetite for some of those actions. But what he was essentially arguing is we've actually gone far already. We've sanctioned Israeli ministers. We've done this, we've done that. And he kind of listed them all off and tried to explain why actually what they've done already is quite harsh. But he also didn't rule out, for instance, acknowledging a state of Palestine, but he didn't actually commit this morning to any concrete action further than the government has taken so far. And I think that speaks to the fact that actually diplomacy, he talked about how he'd spoken to the foreign minister yesterday, the Israeli foreign minister yesterday, and clearly the Israelis, for now, are not listening. And the question is, how does David Lammy manage to not alienate the Israelis to the point where they completely stop listening, but nonetheless state the UK government's hardened position on what is happening in Gaza and the fact that they find it intolerable, the level of possible starvation and killings in Gaza as well?
Well, I think well worth people watching the full interview with David Lammy from this morning, which we'll make sure gets put up online. Switch focus for me. Yes. Tories reshuffle going on?
Yes, so there is a current shadow cabinet reshuffle at the moment. James Cleverly, remember him? He used to be Home Secretary, he used to be Foreign Secretary before that. He is making a comeback to a front shadow cabinet role. We still don't know what the role is going to be. However, Tory sources have told me it is not Shadow Chancellor. They've told me Mel Stride is safe in his role as Shadow Chancellor. I've been trying to figure out what it might be this morning and still not getting any confirmation. What is interesting is that I've spoken to several shadow cabinet ministers this morning who genuinely told me they don't have a clue what is going on. And the problem with this is often with reshuffles, everything's on a need-to-know basis, and therefore people really are not aware of necessarily what is happening until that very moment when they're told if they're either for the chopping block or they're going to stay.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a broad reshuffle, I guess. It could literally just be a one in, one out.
Yeah.
So those people could still be in the dark and it not be a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. It could be a very small reshuffle. It could be a matter of 2-3 ministers, let's say, shadow ministers, and everybody else staying put. But I think depending on what we see from the reshuffle, where they put Cleverly, who's in, who's out, will give us a really, really useful indication of Kemi Badenoch's direction of travel, the kind of people that she wants on her team, the kind of attack dogs that she wants in which departments, where she thinks they can shine. And that's really helpful.
Mari, great stuff as always. Thanks very much for that. More as we get on that ongoing shadow cabinet reshuffle. Right, next up, we've got a report from a community in Arkansas that doesn't want blacks, Jews or gays. Sky's Tom Cheshire was invited to visit the group, which is part of a wider online movement with supporters around the world. Here's Tom's report.
High up in the Ozark Hills in the state of Arkansas, dozens of people have been working hard, building houses and a new type of community. It's called Return to the Land, and it is a town open to white people only. They are millennials and Gen Z, and this is a new update of age-old prejudice. No blacks, no Jews, no gays. Its founder, Eric Orwell, invited me in because they believe what they are doing is completely legal.
Welcome to the Ozarks.
Thank you very much.
What we've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites-only place.
White American culture. Yeah, not just white, but white American.
But what this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I mean, it's free association. So we're not trying to keep other people down. This is a small settlement in the middle of the Ozarks.
But they are being kept out, even if...
Well, I mean, you don't let everyone into your home.
Around 40 people live here. Hundreds more from across the world have paid to be members. And while the men do the physical labor, the women take care of the children who live here full-time.
It's a loving movement.
I mean, on that aspect of it being loving, I suppose the counter-argument would be it could be a very loving community if you're part of the community, but if you're black, or if you're Jewish, or if you're gay, you can't be part of that community.
They can have their own communities, and they already do, and I think that's great for them. If other people are allowed to do it, I don't really see why whites aren't allowed to do it. It doesn't make any sense.
But the goal is to have lots of these communities, and for it maybe not to be rural, for there to be cities on the same basis, right?
Yeah, that would be neat. I look forward to seeing how this movement grows over time.
Return to the Land is only the most radical example of a growing trend. These are all the white supremacist incidents, demonstrations, leafleting, recruitment drives, meetups over the last 4 years in the US, tracked by ACLED, an organisation that monitors violent conflict and protest. There's been a dramatic increase over that period. It has become a background thrum of nationalist activity. You might be wondering how any of this can be legal. Return to the Land is structured as a private members' association, which they believe allows them to discriminate on the basis of ethnicity, along with other factors. That has yet to be tested in the courts and may well fail, according to civil rights experts.
If you really look deep in the Civil Rights Act, that would state that, no, it doesn't state that. And I think they misunderstand what it states, because there have been many organizations that tried to carve that out and say, hey, there are certain people I want in here and certain people I don't, and there was a lawsuit. And the person who filed the lawsuit won, because you cannot carve out and say, I want this group of people in and this group of people out. That's not right.
Right or not, they are doing it and they are growing it. The Arkansas Attorney General has said his office is now reviewing the matter as a result of our reporting, and that there is no room for racial discrimination in Arkansas or anywhere in a free society. We contacted the governor of Arkansas, but did not receive any response. Return to the Land, though, hopes to be a beacon for its political ideals. Others will look at the same flames and see something very dangerous. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Arkansas.
Well, you can watch the full version of Tom's report tonight on The World from 9 p.m. or by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. We're also going to talk more about this at 9:45 with Michael Yaki. He was a former commissioner at the US Commission on Civil Rights. That's coming up at 9:45.
Brilliant stuff. Elsewhere, England's Lionesses take on Italy tonight in the semi-finals of the Euros. Jackie Baltrau is in Geneva for us. Great to see you, as always, Jackie. Just talk us through what the main challenges are for the Lionesses ahead of this game.
The main challenges for the Lionesses ahead of this game is themselves. I think, putting in a performance that's good from start to finish hasn't been easy in this tournament, not been plain sailing at all for them. They were not good for the first part of the match against Sweden. Then they were brilliant to get themselves back in it, and then they were in the ascendancy. If they have an up-and-down game like that against Italy, and Italy like to be front-runners and score first, which they have done in all their matches so far, and then they will manage that situation, then England could find themselves in a spot of bother. But, against the Netherlands, they were fantastic, scoring 4 goals. So which Lionesses will turn up tonight? Well, certainly they've learnt a lot during this tournament. They've had almost every scenario of how they were playing, thrust upon them, and they've had to deal with all these problems that's cropped up on the pitch. So, and they've done it. They've done it really well. Their subs have been really good. Chloe Kelly has made a massive impact from the bench. Michelle Adjumang as well, the young 19-year-old Arsenal player too. They've got firepower on the bench. So whatever happens tonight, they know they can turn it around. They are big game players. They know what it takes to get to a final. And a lot of people think they will just have too much strength in depth for Italy tonight. But Italy are in the semi-final and they're dangerous.
My household is definitely split. One half Italian side, the other half the England side. Now biting. Kick-off is, of course, at 8 o'clock, Jackie. But last night we saw that press conference, didn't we, from the Lionesses. What's the mood like, particularly after Jess Carter revealing that she's been the subject of racist abuse online?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's a real feeling of togetherness after that press conference last night. They're very much all behind Jess Carter. Serena Wiegmann was asked about taking Jess Carter perhaps out of the firing line. Also, she didn't have a great match against Sweden. And she said, no, she's ready to play, and that says a lot about her. And Georgia Stanway, who was doing the press conference with Serena last night, said, it's really brought us together as a team and there's no place for this in society. It's got to be cut out. But these people aren't fans. And she's right. These people who go on social media and throw around this racist abuse at footballers, they're not fans. They're quite possibly gamblers, as we all know. But fully fit squad, Serena revealed yesterday, to choose from. So that's good. That gives her, lots of competition for places which she has in the squad. She doesn't tend to tinker too much with it. So I'm wondering if we will see many changes from the squad that started against Sweden last night. And the main point, I think, after she talked about, there was a lot of questions about the racism. After she talked about that, she said, the main thing is we cannot be complacent. Complacency would be a very dangerous thing for us to do. We will not underestimate Italy.
All right, Jackie, for now, great stuff. Thank you so much. Well, let's take you through some of the day's other stories now. And gang leaders, corrupt police officers and companies selling small boat equipment for channel crossings will have their assets frozen under a new sanctions regime targeting people smugglers and their enablers. The government will also be able to impose travel bans and block access to the UK's financial system. There's a bit of a row to mention. It's going on between NHS England and the British Medical Association over staffing levels during a 5-day strike by resident doctors, formerly known as junior doctors. NHS England has told hospitals to only cancel non-urgent care in exceptional cases, but the BMA says this, of course, risks patient safety, warning that emergency services could be left understaffed. Now, the walkout is set to begin at 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And the actor Malcolm Jamal Warner, who played the Crosby Show character Theo, has died in Costa Rica. Authorities say the 54-year-old drowned off the country's Caribbean coast while on holiday with his family.
Very sad news on that one from the Cosby Show. Right, switching focus, Leah, you've been speaking to
Christina Aguilera, the superstar, the pop star, the director currently. She's in London because she is wanting to talk to everyone about Burlesque, the West End show. It's all based on the film that she starred in 2010. Let's take a look at my sit-down interview with the one, the only, Christina Aguilera.
From cult film to centre stage, Burlesque, the musical, has landed in London. It must be quite surreal, Christina.
It's beautiful to see the reinvention of something that was so special to us when we created it originally.
It's a story of ambition, identity and sequence. But why bring it back and why now?
It's always been something that we have wanted to do. We talked about it when we were making the movie, and it was so obvious, I think, to all of us that this would play on stage and be, something that people would embrace on the stage.
With original songs by Aguilera and Sia, plus fresh tracks from Todrick Hall and Jess Foley, the music pushes things a bit darker, bolder, louder.
You kind of have to have the balance of the best of both worlds. And I really loved the way Jess sort of embodied that and bringing new interpretation and new vocals to the table that, just blow the audience away. I was blown away. I loved just listening.
After sold-out shows in Manchester and Glasgow, Burlesque now runs at the Savoy Theatre until September 6th. And fans are wondering, will Cher show up?
We're hoping.
She's always welcome to grace us with her incredible, iconic presence. And I'm just so grateful that I had the time in the movie with her. Looking back, it's just like, did that even happen?
Back in the 90s, pop stars like Christina and Britney were celebrated, sexualised and scrutinised, often all at once. The media wasn't kind and the industry rarely protective. So would she do it all again in today's world? Or is 90s nostalgia safer than a second round?
If you could do your career over again, would you do it in the 90s? Or would you do it now?
It has to stay where it was. I think everything has its own time and place, and, it wouldn't be the same if I was in this format and, social media wasn't even a thing back then.
There's a give and take in both, but it's got to live in the 90s.
As
it was.
All about the 90s. I'm with you, girl. This, a story of reinvention on stage and off.
Lots more still to come here on The Breakfast Show, where we'll speak to Miriam Margolyes about the new Charles Dickens exhibition, which is showcasing the writer's love of performing.
we are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club. 4 more years! Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
This morning looks like turning quite cloudy generally, with showers developing widely, although concentrated in the east. Thundery downpours are still possible, but the showers will mostly be lighter than recently, will be a bit cooler than yesterday. The afternoon will bring little change, although Ireland will see showers turning heavy in the south, while southern England will see more sunshine coming through. The unsettled conditions and lateness of the season mean pollen levels will be low just about everywhere.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, a new exhibition is opening exploring the life of Victorian writer Charles Dickens. Showtime focuses on the novelist's love of performance and theatre. And it celebrates 100 years, by the way, of a museum that celebrates his work. Let's speak to the patron of the Charles Dickens Museum, actor Miriam Margolyes. Thank you so much for joining us and a very good morning to you.
Oh, bless you, darling, and I'm an actress because I'm a woman. You may not have noticed.
I stand corrected, and thank you for correcting me on that. And again, thank you for joining us. And I guess this goes without saying, but you are a massive Dickens fan.
I am. I just love it, and I love being here in the museum. I've been coming here, all my life, and I just love it, and I've never seen it looking so gorgeous as it is today. It's a beautiful place, and the coffee's good and the cakes are good, so everybody should come and have a look.
Well, it's win-win-win then, by all accounts, Miriam. But tell us what is particularly on show at the moment to celebrate this 100-year mark.
What they're showing now is Dickens' connection with theatre, because he would have been an actor if he hadn't had a cold on the morning of his audition at Drury Lane Theatre. And he became a writer. And we're glad he became a writer because he's created, oh gosh, such wonderful characters, some of which I do, and I've been doing since 1980, I think. But here you see playbills, objects that he used, touched, books that he read, furniture that he sat in. It's just a life was lived here, a great writer, and he belongs to all of us. And that's why I want people to come to this museum and enjoy it.
And you mentioned the very clear partnership, I guess, with the stage as well as his books. Some of his most famous books were originally plays.
I don't know that they were originally plays. I didn't know that. Who are you thinking of? Which ones are you thinking of?
Well, then I've done so. I trust your judgment on this and bad reading. I thought Oliver Twist I read this morning, was created for the stage first.
Oliver Twist was created for the stage? Well, I didn't know that. I may be wrong. What? And Oliver Twist actually was the very first Dickens book I ever read when I was 11. And I was hooked on the Dickens world from that moment because I love crims. And I think he loved crims too.
I have no doubt you are right on this, and you've corrected me then a second time on a very important point, two very important points, and I can only apologise, Miriam, for getting that wrong. I don't know where I read that this morning, but anyway, we must...
Well, it may be true. People say all sorts of things, don't they? But I didn't know that, and I'm not afraid to say I didn't know. And that's why it's wonderful to come here, because you learn so much. You learn what it was like to live in the 19th century. And I tell you, I'd rather live in the 19th century than the one we're in now.
Well, it's interesting. It brings me to our next topic that I wanted to ask you about. And you said a line earlier that Charles Dickens belongs to all of us. And I just wondered where you stood on the current debate that's ongoing about copyright and whether AI could abuse the creations of so many brilliant writers and content creators going down the lines. Because that was quite an interesting phrase you said, that it belongs to all of us, in a way that might suggest you're not so against relaxing copyright law.
Well, you can think again about that, because I loathe AI and everything connected with it. That is not about everybody sharing, it's about people stealing and lying, which is what goes on a great deal these days. No, AI is a very bad thing, and I won't have anything to do with it, and I'm pretty sure that Mr. Dickens would not like it either. He was very strong on copyright, and why shouldn't actors and artists and writers be properly compensated for their brilliance?
Well,
he made more money out of his readings than he ever did out of his writings.
That's very interesting. And I want to ask as well, if I may, just to wrap things up, Miriam, about where you stand on J.K. Rowling and how she's been treated in general in recent years, particularly in light of the recent Supreme Court decision. Do you think she's been treated unfairly? Do you think there's some legitimacy to criticisms of J.K. Rowling or not?
I think everybody can be criticised. I think that's fair enough. But everybody's so horrid and nasty and unkind, and I don't like that. I don't want people to be unkind about trans. I mean, I'm a gay woman myself, and you have to just put up with it. I don't know if she's been badly treated, but I think it was wrong that she wasn't invited to the celebrations for Harry Potter. You know, she created the whole thing. She may be wrong about some things, and women's bodies are tremendously important. I love my body, even though it's fat and misshapen, and I wouldn't be a man for anything. But trans, who cares? Let's be kind. Let's be inclusive. I think there's an awful lot of nonsense talked about it. I don't know J.K., I've never met her, but I salute her as a very great writer, and I think I like the detective stories best.
Well, they're fantastic, the Galbraith books. I quite concur on that. And you're a fantastic Professor Sprout, and many other brilliant roles. And Miriam, we are sadly out of time, and I can only apologise again for my errors in my research. But a delight to talk to you this morning.
Thanks for including Charles Dickens and me this morning.
Exactly right, and please come back and join us anytime, Miriam. Great to have you with us, Miriam Margolis there from the Dickens Museum in central London. Margolis, third time, it's a charm. Correction, all legitimate, and my apologies there. Still to come here on The Breakfast Show, much more still to come in the final half an hour. We'll be previewing the Lionesses' all-important semi-final. That's coming up.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back to The Breakfast Show. Well, coming up in just a moment, the Lionesses preparing, of course, to face the Italians tonight in the semi-final of the Euros. We'll speak to a former footballer who won the World Cup with Italy in 1984. First, a recap of the top stories.
Thank you so much, Wilfred. The Foreign Secretary has called on Israel's Foreign Minister to take a step back, describing conditions in Gaza as the grimmest on the planet. David Lammy said there's a clear risk. Israel has already breached international law. The government has suspended some arms licences, but stopped short of calling for a blanket ban on arms to Israel. Sky News has become the first news organisation to spend time at a settlement in Arkansas in the US, which is hoping to create a whites-only community. Now, the model has been created by the American far right and is now spreading across the country, though US courts have yet to determine whether such a movement is legal. And people smugglers could see their assets frozen as the government seeks to put an end to illegal people smuggling. New powers granted under the Sanctions Act would also prevent people smugglers being allowed to enter the UK. And England's Lionesses will be hoping to make yet more history this evening by roaring into their third final in a row. And there's just one thing standing in their way. It's Italy, who also have an eye on the final.
Well, just 2 games separate the Lionesses from making history and retaining their Euros title. It hasn't been an easy tournament with England. A loss to France in the group stages and only a penalties win against Sweden in the quarters. Tonight, they take on Italy for a place in the final, as Leah has mentioned. Let's speak to Rose Riley, who won the World Cup with Italy in 1984. Rose, great to have you with us. Just update us. So you won. You're wearing a Scotland shirt this morning. You won it with Italy. Give our viewers the background there of how that adds up.
The background was I wanted to turn professional many years ago. I want to say that in the early 70s, and to become professional, I went to Stade de Reims in France, and then AC Milan bought me, where I was playing in the majestic San Siro. In the meantime, I got notification from the SFA, Scottish Football Association, that I was banned for life for playing for my country. I only assumed it was because I'd turned professional. There was just faceless men in suits that were deciding my future. I was very successful in Italy. So 5 years down the line, the Towns asked me if I'd play for the national team, which I readily agreed.
Well, I mean, this is an amazing story, and I want to get into it. Congratulations on winning the World Cup. I guess the quick short-term question to interrupt the story with is, by wearing the Scotland shirt, I think it's quite clear, so you'll be supporting, I presume, Italy tonight.
Well, I never played for England. They never called me up, strangely. Of course, Italy's my adopted country. I'm Scottish, born and bred. So I fly the flag for Scotland and Italy, but I'm a great fan of the Lionesses.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Great stuff, Rose. I was just looking at that shirt of you in the Italian shirt, and my Enzo, who's 7, has one currently. He will not stop wearing it. So you can see my household is truly divided. But listen, Rose, take me back to when you were 6 and what you achieved, really, because at that time you had to cut your hair short, and theoretically, if you were born a boy, you would be a national hero right now. But not many people know your story, which is a scandal.
OK, I was only 6 years of age when the Sturton Boys Club asked me if I could play for them, if I would play for them. There was no girls' teams at the time anyway. And they said, go to your barber's, got a short back and side, a boy's haircut, change your name from Rose to Ross. Get changed at home, you can't come in the dressing rooms, which I readily agreed. There was one particular game when I was about 8 years of age, and I'd scored, I was about 7 at the time, I scored 8 goals that day, and there was a Celtic scout there looking for S-form boys to sign up for Celtic. That's like a school apprenticeship thing. And the Celtic scout had said to the manager at the time, John Roy, could we sign the wee number 7 right away? And he said, no, it's a wee lassie. He said, no, the one that scored all the goals. He says, it's still a wee girl.
Oh, my goodness. Rose, how did you...
I spoke to Celtic Scout and I was gutted. If I was good enough, why can I not play for Celtic? But 60 down the line, about 2 years ago, Celtic summoned me up to Celtic Park. They gave me a presentation box. In it was a Celtic scarf and the Hoops jersey with Riley and number 7 at the back. And they said, sorry, we are 60 years late. Will you sign for Celtic as our ambassador?
I mean, that's... I don't have words, really, to describe it.
Because the girls are really... we're trying to pave our way in Scottish football. It's going to be difficult. My thermometer of the women's game in Scotland is copying England. There's usually a kind of sporting hatred between Scotland and England. I'll leave that to the men, but I support England all the way in the amazing blueprint they've put up for the success of women's football.
Apart from against Italy tonight, which we understand, I'm not pushing back. I get you're making a different point about the Lionesses as a whole versus the clash tonight. I guess just linked to all of what you're saying is the extent to which you really celebrate where the game is now, maybe more so in England than in Scotland yet, based on what you're saying, or whether there is, if that's mixed in any way, with some level of sense of unfairness that you didn't get to experience the same thing yourself.
For me, emotion's weakness. I don't do unfairness. A journalist interviewed me a couple of years ago, especially when England they won the Euros, and I was the first one jumping up and down. And there was a lot of the players getting endorsed, getting sponsored by like Nike bras or whatever for £1 million. And the journalist asked me, are you not jealous or angry that you didn't make the same money after such a successful career? And I said to her, have you got kids? And she said, yes. I said, are you jealous of your kids? She said, no. I said, they're my kids.
Wow. What a wonderful perspective, and what a great line to round it off on. Rose, we really thank you for sharing your story tonight. It's much appreciated.
Could I just say, sorry to interrupt, I love you, Jess Carter.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's been a big story on the show today, Rose.
Yeah,
so, yeah, of course.
Apparently, it's a disgrace, but for every 100 hate she gets, there's 1,000 Scottish female footballers that are going to say, we love you, Jess.
Well, an even better line to finish on, Rose, and thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for ending the conversation on that note. Rose Riley, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Now, moving on, a little-known international convention is being named, Sam, in shot, mate. Sorry. Is being blamed for slowing down Britain's house-building efforts. I was saying earlier, Sam, it's not that little known, not on this programme, not if they've been following the things you've been saying about this, but tell us a bit more about the Our House Convention.
So we've been following for a few months now this international convention that gets blamed for one of the reasons why Britain just can't get moving. It means that basically the taxpayer steps in if somebody brings a challenge and loses on environmental grounds a big project. And we followed a case in March. We've now got the verdict. This film talks about attempts to use the Our House Convention and its impact in Kent, and also what happened to the case that we told you about in March. And if you watch this film, you'll see the pre and post haircut that we've just had. Watch this.
For this site, there will be 165 homes.
All over the country, legal battles like this. John Wotton has been trying to save these fields between two housing developments. The cost to campaigners like him limited because of a little-known international law.
Could you have brought the case to try and stop these houses if taxpayers didn't step in to pay some of the costs of the opposing side?
We would have had to think very carefully about whether we could impose that financial risk on the charity.
Behind you there's a housing development, in front of you there's a housing development. What difference really would it make if there were some here?
If you take that argument to its extreme, you can always build another estate. You can always extend the right to challenge decisions taken by public bodies, including ministers, is a vital democratic right.
60 metres behind me, urgently needed housing is being constructed. But in this field here, Nothing, even though it's 4 years since planning approval was given. 200 metres that way, another housing development. The story of why there aren't shovels in the ground right here, right now, helps explain why Britain struggles to get building.
Sky News has been reporting for months about a £10,000 cap on costs, which is stopping building. That's because Britain has signed up to the Aarhus Convention to help environmental challenges. In this case, the developers won against the campaign group, with taxpayers again picking up the tab. Berkeley Homes said the system was incredibly slow, uncertain, and the situation was absurd. Not least because of the way Britain interprets the Aarhus Convention, which is unique. This lawyer, who has represented government and campaigners, said the convention means more legally adventurous claims.
There shouldn't be challenges going through which are an attempt to relitigate the planning merits, because the judges have been incredibly clear this is not for them. That said, it's not uncommon for disappointed people in the planning system to effectively try and relitigate the case.
Remember this man, Andrew Boswell, who Keir Starmer made the poster boy for NIMBYs, challenging big infrastructure projects. Years of this site staying desolate after he challenged a carbon capture and storage project due in Teesside. In the last few weeks, his case thrown out.
So the judgment handed down by the court behind me was scathing. It says that Dr. Boswell's approach is, we think, a classic example of the misuse of judicial review in order to continue a campaign against a development once a party has lost the argument on the planning merits. So more costs, more delays on a case that judges seem to think should not have been brought.
Several government figures have told me they think our Aarhus membership is mad, but it's the Tories who are demanding action.
We've got to reform the planning system, and we've got to ensure that judicial review is not used to gum up the system. And this convention is clearly one of the issues that has to be addressed.
Should we pull out? How could we reform it? What should we do?
We either reform it, if that's possible. I'm very sceptical. If that isn't possible, then we absolutely should think about leaving.
The government wants 1.5 million new homes in 4 years. That's the time it's taken arguing over this site here. Can ministers meet their goal without real change? Sam Coates, Sky News, Cranbrook in Kent.
How many times did you go to the barbers during the filming of this?
You will have noticed a change in hairstyle from last week when we were in Kent to this week when we finished the film. Look, the thing about that and the film and the subject is that I think it encapsulates a bit of the rut that this government is in, because back in March, I was told by somebody in Downing Street, look, this thing that you've clocked onto, this Aarhus Convention, this thing that's slowing up building, it's a problem and we want to deal with it, right? That was back in March. In the preparation of this film, I had two different people in government saying, look, this Aarhus Convention, totally mad. But are they doing anything about it? No. I mean, I checked in yesterday, there are no plans to change it, no plans to renegotiate it, no plans. One of the things that's going on, by the way, is a global convention, but it's Britain that's interpreting it in a particular way, a bit like European Convention of Human Rights, that's causing some of these problems. So there's a problem, but they just don't know how to deal with it in government because it's all too difficult. It might mean defying international law or renegotiating something with other countries. It's in the too hot to handle box. And it just feels like there's a lot of those things at the moment.
What I don't quite understand with this one, and I remember, as I've alluded to throughout the show today, when we discussed it back in March, found it very, very interesting. And we asked then, are there plans, I've asked this to Matthew Pennycook during the interviews we've done with him in between, why not just pull out of this convention? It's not as short, one would imagine, politically toxic with the Europeans as pulling out of the ECHR. Is it linked to, is it kind of an all or nothing pull out of European conventions, or could you just pull out of this sole building blocking convention if you so desired?
Well, it seems that the government has a policy of not doing that. But for instance, it's a great question, America's not a member, right? So there are plenty of European countries that are, but not everybody has signed up. So presumably the answer is yes. The Conservative position is reform, but we don't think reform's possible. We'll attempt reform, but if not, we'll pull out. So that is now one of the major parties putting that very firmly on the agenda. And it's hard to see you'd either, that you would get a particularly big public backlash for something that, let's be honest, other than Sky News viewers and follows...
I don't think anyone would have heard about it if not for you, to be clear.
Then I don't think there's a big public backlash. There is a point to it, right? And I do get the reason that we signed up in the first place, and that is because big developers with deep pockets can just steamroller and bulldoze sort of potentially at will, and there needs to be some kind of way of being able to challenge that. The question is, as with a lot of things in the UK, have we gold-plated that right a bit too far?
Really interesting. As always, Sam, thanks so much, and well worth listening to the podcast at Jack and Sam's.
What?
Sam and Anne's, my apologies. Sorry. I've had a few slips of the tongues there. I've been brought up by Miriam Margolyes as well earlier. I've got just errors left, right and centre. Anyway, Sam, thank you very much. We've got a picture for you. Happy birthday, Prince George. This has just been released by Kensington Palace in the last few minutes. It is his 12th birthday today. And this picture was taken a few months ago in Norfolk, I believe. It is his 12th birthday today. This picture was taken back earlier this year, is all we're told. Earlier this year by Josh Shinnett in Norfolk. Very happy birthday, Prince George. We'll be right back.
Turkey is burying its dead. Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. Well, a remote corner of the American state of Arkansas has set up a far-right community where only white, straight people are welcome. Tom Cheshire was invited to visit it. He did. He filed an extensive report, which we played you earlier. Tom, just set us up for us exactly what you discovered.
Yeah, so this is a community. They say, you know, if you want to build a white nation, build a white town. It can be done. We're doing it. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. They've been going for 2 years, 160 acres. They have different criteria for membership, but you have to have European heritage, is what they say. And that effectively means you have to be white. So if you're Jewish or if you're African American, or also if you're openly homosexual, in their words, you won't be allowed to join that group. Now, that sounds like a sort of return to segregation. They would say, we're just up in the woods, we're not bothering anyone else. But this is land. It's a complicated structure. It's a private members association. So they say this is a free speech, a free association issue. But then when it comes to housing, there are things like the Fair Housing Act in America, which is supposed to sort of not allow this to happen. They think they're on the right side of the law. They have a legal fund. They've got tens of thousands of dollars invested in legal research. They think what they're doing there is entirely legal. That may or may not be the case.
Let's bring in Michael Yaki. He's the former US Commissioner at the US Commission on Civil Rights. Michael, great to see you as always. Is this legal?
Well, Wilf, there is an exception carved out into the Civil Rights Act for private clubs. And what this group is attempting to do is to take that exception and basically push its boundaries as far as they possibly can.
And so when it comes to looking at that, could it go to court? Could this be a thing where they say this actually isn't a private members association, which tends to be quite tightly defined in US law? This is something, you know, they're soliciting donations, they want people to join, they're recruiting. Does that cross that line?
Well, it's interesting because there was another sort of community based in Idaho a couple decades ago, founded by the Aryan Nation, which was a ardently, openly Nazi organization, and they were able to stay there for a couple of decades based on the the private member association. Now it's very strict. You have to follow very set rules. What I'm wondering about is because they're building housing and they're quote unquote selling shares that essentially create housing, which is like a co-op in many ways. So those things are under the ambit of the Civil Rights Act. Is that going to catch them up? But we'll just have to see. It's something where, you know, you can't legislate away hate, you can't legislate away racism and bigotry, which is unfortunate.
I was going to ask if this is commonplace. I didn't even know there was a case of something similar that existed for decades previously. Is it? I doubt it's common, but is it becoming less rare, this sort of thing, or is it still incredibly rare?
Well, at the time that the Civil Rights Act was passed in '64, this was mainly about private clubs, where white businessmen wanted to only associate with white businessmen, have their own private things. Golf clubs are one of the biggest and the most notorious examples that golfers like Tiger Woods, Lee Elders, and others have basically started to push down. But the exception has always been there. People generally, and you see it in different ways. You'll see it in religious communities. You'll see extreme sort of interpretation of Mormonism cults in Utah, where they fence themselves off and they live together. If you just sort of are living in your racist truth, you have that right to do it in the United States. The question is, again, what these people are doing is starting to essentially sell shares, and whether or not that selling of shares violates the Fair Housing Act will probably be where there's going to be litigation in the future. Or in some cases, they just ignore these people. The more attention that they get is what they want. So in some cases, as with the Nazis in Idaho, it was pretty much ignorance until they did something stupid, which is they attacked somebody and a civil lawsuit bankrupted them and they had to sell the land. But there was no other way to get them.
Michael, sorry, we're out of time. Thanks so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Michael Yaki there. Tom, great stuff. Full report on the Sky News website. We're going to take a quick break here. Up next, Gareth with Sky News Today.
Turkey is burying its dead. Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News. Get the full story first.